by Baylor. Baylor recovers.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Pressure, Calzada steps up and delivers a throw. It's picked off. Picked off by Finley. A.J. Finley down the sidelines. Touchdown, Ole Miss, pick six.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
And here's a reverse. Heading to the corner. Heading. Touchdown, Michigan.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Empty backfield, four-man rush. And that is intercepted. It's the Marcus Lawrence. Down the sideline, he goes. And look at that. Into the end zone.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports in about 45 minutes or so. John Passavant, Startup Waco, will join us here in studio. They are working with helping student athletes at Baylor have a chance to become a part of entrepreneurs or a part of any kind of business. And it's not a collective, so to speak, but we'll have John Passavant come on and discuss that with us. And also, Baylor did say today, they launched a marketplace, NIL marketplace with Open Doors. And, of course, we've had Open Doors representatives on this show as well. And then the reaction is they're one of the last. Baylor has been kind of taking their time with this. You see others who have come up with ways of feeding NIL and also the pockets of players, student athletes, whatever. People very, very aggressive. Baylor is kind of taking their time. And even this, I'm not sure if it scratches your itch, but we will hear from John Passavant today at 3:45.
Well, it's interesting. You know, I'm curious to hear how these things work and, you know, Open Doors and Startup Waco and all these different, how does it work from the perspective here locally for Baylor and what their, you know, how theirs is going to, you know, work out, because we've heard so many different things of this is charity work, this is local business. It's all really confusing, you know, when you get down to the end of it to just the layman like us.
This is going to the program, and we'll get more explanation at 3:45, designed to connect Baylor student athletes with name, image, likeness opportunities centered around its core organizational mission. And we will have John on, as I said, and this has really been something that's been brewing, and I think it's safe to say that they had to kind of touch a few things up. I had to dot a couple of I's and cross a couple of T's. I thought that they were going to release this yesterday. They waited another day to do it. And then on the same day, you have the Open Doors release from Baylor Athletics about that relationship as well. The program called GXG will facilitate NIL opportunities exclusively for student athletes who don the green and gold. GXG will work in collaboration with new existing partners, businesses, and other constituencies to offer a suite of options to student athletes, including champion Waco-based entrepreneurs connecting the citywide businesses, and again, learning about business, being a part of it, and also having a chance to work with businesses in an NIL type of way that will allow student athletes at Baylor to have at least options and opportunities, and you can go based on your sport. And we'll get into who is the one that funds this, where does the money come from, are they already set up to help with NIL, with Startup Waco with John in 45 minutes. Also, a couple of other notes. This is something that Brian Etheridge, Cole Barber, and Ashley Hodge have been working on. We showed these about 2 or 3, 4 weeks ago, the Baylor, the Sikkim or 365 hats. These are, you can see them, Sikkim 365, or the hats, $35 a piece. We had some, we gave some away for you, the viewers. You can go to bearskins, at the end of it.com for more information. If you want to buy hats, there are hats available, and some of them were being sold even as late as last night. Craig Smoak has a 365 Sports. These, of course, have a little bit of a patch on the front and more options to come. Just another way for us to promote. Michael Penny contacted me. I think it was by text or email. Big fan of the show. We appreciate Michael down to the southern part of where we are. And I sent him an actual Sikkim 365 T-shirt the other day. I just happened to have like a box of 3 or 4 of them that were extra large and large. I did that and sent him that, plus the stickers you see on the front of my laptop. So we like to get that out to you whenever we can. Now, Craig sent this to us yesterday, among many other things as well. Here is a quote from ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips when at ACC Media Days, "We are not the professional ranks. This is not the NFL, NBA light. We remain competitive with one another, but this is not and should not be winner-take-all or zero-sum structure. College athletics have never been elitist, singularly commercial. It has provided countless individuals with a path to a higher education and also life-changing possibilities, access, opportunity, and modern rules based on structure should all remain a priority as we continue to evolve."
Okay. So college athletics, like I could make the argument that softball or, track and field has never been elitist, but college football sure is F.
Whoa.
I mean, it is. It's elitist. College football is the damn definition of elitist. Only 4 teams get in. Guess what that is? Elitist. The rules are all changing.
And really, for 100 years, only 1 or 2 got the championship. There was no playoff.
It's the definition of elitist. So, yes, Jim, you are technically right in your blanket statement that college athletics has never been elitist, because I doubt the people, laboring away, playing non-revenue sports that are on partial scholarships, and they've gotten great opportunities. But, yeah, they're probably not that elitist if you play, golf or tennis or, softball, baseball, one of those that you do have to pay some of your way to go. But college football is the definition of elitist.
All right, so that's the comment from what a lot of people thought would be the Big Ten commissioner, remember? And then, of course, Kevin Warren was named Big Ten commissioner. There's a couple of great stories about him that were out in the last couple of days about things that he went through when he first took over. Now, here is Kevin Warren. Now, you heard what Jim Phillips' quote, or read it. "I don't think you can close the door on future expansion. From a strategy standpoint, this is not the old college athletics. For the individuals and conferences that are not thinking that way, they're going to be Sears and Roebuck. For those of you not old enough, they're the ones that filed bankruptcy in 2018, and they were like the ones who ran the malls and other stores and things where you went and bought stuff. That's straight blunt. That's where this deal is going. We have about 3 or 4 more years of perpetual disruption. During that period, either you're going to embrace change and build a business and get stronger or not." The complete opposite, I would think, take of the ACC commissioner and Jim Phillips.
I think we just read them back to back, and they are complete opposites about as far as what their messaging is. And, it's pretty blunt there. What Kevin Warren is saying, either jump on board or get bowled over, basically. So, 3 to 4 years of disruption, that was a part that stood out to me because I don't know exactly what that means. I guess it refers to just all of the changes that could continuously be or could continue, happening. There's the Dennis Dodd report out there today, which, it's funny because it's basically the report from like a month ago that we were talking about, and there's a bunch of people like, "Oh, it's a silly, stupid expansion. Like, what's this realignment? There's nothing to it, blown out of proportion." A month later, it's like, oh, now the same thing makes sense all of a sudden. It's just kind of weird how we're circling back here. So I guess that's referring to maybe more of that type of stuff of, Pac-12 schools leaving for the Big Ten or whatever other options are out there to potentially happen. The Big 12, plucking some teams away or any number of other things. So, I think the line in the sand's been drawn, and it's pretty clear that the line in the sand's been drawn. And there's the Big Ten and the SEC on one side, and there's the remainder of college football on the other. And I don't know how chummy those two are on that side. I think that, they're going to be chummy until they both get kind of settled in where they want, and then it'll be a blood war basically between those two for supremacy. In my mind, I think we're kind of going that direction where it could be respectable, but, certainly Kevin Warren wants the Big Ten to be the bee's knees, and Greg Sankey wants the SEC to be the same way. And so I think they're going to work together as much as they can to ultimately land in their respective spots as the 1A, 1B, and then kind of how that trickles down to everybody else, remains to be seen. I'm sure they'll have some battles over that along the way. But, yeah, Jim Phillips is out of touch if he thinks that this is just going to remain the way that it has been all these years. And I think he's probably got to know that, which is what makes his comments kind of strange about them just sort of, focusing on the academic side or I don't know. And I understand he's got limited options with their contract, so I don't know how much he could have really have said or how much it would benefit him to add to the calamity when his whole, deal right now for the ACC is the fact that they probably got some teams that would love to jump ship if they could. So what can you really say in his position? Because you're locked up for 10-plus years. But, yeah, it's interesting to see the difference in those comments. And, Kevin Warren, I felt like I didn't know how to explain this, but after thinking it over, Kevin Warren said a lot without really saying anything detail-wise. Like, he brought up every topic under the sun, but he never specifically said really anything about any of those topics. Like, we're open for expansion, but to what degree? Well, it's got to make sense. Okay, well, that tells us nothing except for that you're open for expansion. He mentioned academics, but didn't get, deep into what the academic side of this would all mean or be. He just kind of touched on I'm for the playoff. I'm for the whatever expanded playoff, but didn't give any detail on how we're actually going to get there. You know what I'm saying? Like, he touched on everything, so it's kind of a lightning bolt, but never really, dove in on, so this is the direction we're going, or this is what it's going to look like. So I think he kind of chummed the waters, but really didn't reveal anything, and that leaves us all to sit here and just continue speculating while he's crafting big plans behind the scenes. And right now, yeah, it's a Big Ten SEC world, and everybody else is just trying to find their spot on the bus.
It was very much a political speech.
Yes.
We need infrastructure and clean water and lower taxes and all this stuff. How? Don't worry about that now. I've got making a speech. Like that's kind of how that goes in the political world.
You know what it looked like to me, or it sounded like he's throwing it down.
Yeah. In his 3 to 4 years of disruption,
details.
At the very minimum, 3 to 4 years of disruption is 3 or 4 brand new television deals across the board. That's going to disrupt things, at least somewhat.
He said a ton without really saying anything. That's my point. He said basically everything you'd expect him to say, but he didn't say any TV network. He didn't get specific. That's what I'm saying. There were no details. It was just like, yes, this is changing, this is the direction we're going, and get with it or get out of the way. And, I mean, he let the message be clear, and the message was very clear. But, I don't think that we're we don't know, okay, do we know based on that conversation that the Big Ten will or will not expand? No, we don't. They're open to it, right? But do we know if they're going to or not? No. Do we know any of the schools that are involved if they were going to do that? No. Although there's an unnamed person who told Dennis Dodd or whoever else of the same schools that we were talking about a month ago that were involved in the whole Pac-12 stuff of Cal, Stanford, Oregon, Washington. We've been talking about them for weeks now. So you can just kind of deduce that's who we're talking about. He talked about the future and get on and get out, but do we really know what that means? What does that actually look like? Is that 2 conferences? Is that 3? Is that 4? We're probably not going to be 5, obviously. So that's what I mean is he said a lot, and definitely it was, a forewarning almost, but, what exactly is on the other side of that, we don't know.
Well, I also wonder if Kevin Warren, if you've read some of the articles about him this week that from Big Ten, media days, he took an absolute beating. There were those even within his own conference, and it seemed like even the headquarters that were not real thrilled. Everyone thought Jim Phillips was going to be the commissioner. I'm not speaking for everybody, but reading, I think it was 3 or 4 articles about him. This guy's been through a beating. I mean, it almost seemed like everything but someone wanted to take him out. And then, of course, there was the decision in 2020 to cancel the football season, and then they came back and they played at least some games. And so I wonder if it wasn't him just saying, here's the fire hydrant right here in front of me, and he raised his leg to let everyone know he's in charge. Now, whether that's true or not remains to be seen, but he's in a power position, as is the SEC. And I still believe that the other Power Fives who don't get grouped into that have their story to tell. Here's something that, and I've kind of tried to share this with you, with somebody that is very much entrenched within bowl games and also within a lot that goes on with the ACC. As a sponsor, as someone who also is a part of some charitable organizations and some that are a part of allowing student athletes, not allowing, but giving student athletes a chance to kind of have their story told in a human interest way. But in this email that I received, or it's actually a direct message from Isaac Hardy, wanted to bring this up to you. I heard once and only once while listening to many of the outlets that I listen to that sponsors, the ones who hand the money to ESPN say, not once or only once, slow this expansion down a bit as we are the ones who are giving you all the money. Make sense of a guy, let's say Budweiser, who is writing checks in his alma maters in the conference that ESPN and the SEC wants to leave out. You don't think he's pissed? I thought it was interesting to hear Kevin Warren say 16 teams. The other day, Sankey still playing negotiating games as if there might be an SEC-only playoff. I would love to hear if there is talk or whispers from guys who write the checks to ESPN that they don't like this. I did hear you comment a few minutes ago, a sponsor who made that comment to you, and that's the one I brought up from the ACC. How do they pay? Now, if you're Budweiser, you want to find the most eyeballs, the biggest events, Coca-Cola, whoever else. But I've said this before, that there is at least, whether it is just bubbling or not, sponsors who are looking around that have tied money into a lot of things that are right now current, who will still most likely be a part of things, but some of them are also going, wait a minute, what the hell, what do you think you're doing? And it's no one needs to respond to that or comment to it, but I do think that sometimes we hear about no one listens to the fans. I think they will listen to sponsors, and I bet there are more sponsors than we realize who are wondering what the hell's going on with college football.
Well, especially as it gets less, regional and leaves out regions.
If you're a business that is like, for example, in a certain territory that is your territory, and I don't know how Coke and Pepsi, I don't know how that works, or Dr. Pepper or whoever, but there are some territories. And if you are in a business that you're buying a certain conference because of its regionality, which we know regionality is almost out the window, but you are, for example, mainly in the South. And all of a sudden, that conference is now up in the North where, not that you don't sell those products there or your product there, then it changes a little bit. Or maybe out West, where you don't even have, it's not that you don't have customers if you're the business as I mentioned, but maybe your specific business is looking specifically at a certain region, a certain type person, a customer, and the next thing you know, you might be in a different region, which could be good, and yet again, that also could be something you're not real thrilled with.
Yeah, I don't know, Bojangles Chicken is big on the ACC, right? I mean, but that's not a place that we have
but
here.
What are they going to really do?
I'm just using that as an example, So, if you're there, are you mad that ESPN has kind of torpedoed? But that doesn't make sense that, why ESPN would do that because they own the ACC thing. But are you mad? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I would think I don't know if the national sponsors will get really mad. To me, because it seems like it is.
This whole thing's directed towards TV. So if you're a sponsor and you're running commercials, you're trying to get the biggest audience, no?
Yeah.
So why would you be balking at the leagues trying to create the biggest audiences? Because that's what they're doing. The thing I would be balking at is the fact that if any of this stuff about Stanford and Cal and Oregon and Washington is, that it's all being circled back to now, if, the Big Ten were to make that move and add those schools, and then, who knows what the heck the SEC does. And there's, of course, the whole ACC puzzle where there's at least 4 schools out there. Isn't this just the same thing but 2 leagues instead of 5?
Yeah.
So that's what's kind of funny to me is there's all this scrambling around, and we might end up in a spot where by the end of it, it's just the same thing, but it's just 2 leagues instead of 5 of them. And pretty much everybody that was in those 5 is going to be a part of this thing. That's the direction. If you start adding those 4 and then, the other responds, the Big 12's eventually going to have to do something. Pac-10's going to have to fizzle or sizzle one way or the other. If they lose some more schools, they're pretty much dead in the water. So you'd think leftovers go to the Big 12. Probably leaves a couple of them kind of stranded. Maybe they find a lifeboat somewhere. But, this thing, I don't know, man. Until I see somebody say, hey, we're not adding anymore, then why would a sponsor jump in and say anything at this point, No,
that's a very good point. And one of the things that we could do is every day discuss this because we know it's top of your mind because you go to the chat room and there's some that immediately want to get into it. There's a lot out there that's been thrown against the wall that the mud just goes straight to the floor. And on occasion, maybe something will stick. And as it does, we will be here for you and with you along the way. Jeff Traylor, UTSA football coach, will join us in the next segment. John Passavant, Startup Waco, will be a part of the segment in studio at 3:45. And I had a chance today, and I really wish we could have gotten him live because he's an encyclopedia of analytics and stats and data. Phil Steele now, I think 28 or 29 years, has released his college football magazine. You open it up, and it's massive stats. I had a chance to interview him earlier today because it was the only time he was available. We'll have that interview on many things, Big 12, but a few other things, college football. Paul, my first question was the one with you, other than his thoughts about another magazine, was how the transfer portal affects a magazine that has mainly been data-driven, and usually you just copy and paste into the next year with a few changes, and then all of a sudden there are changes all the way up into April and May. Jordan Addison was a late ad. And he kind of discusses that about how it's made it a little bit more difficult for him.
Oklahoma, top returning starters.
Yes.
I mean,
and we get into, and he mentions quite a bit about USC and how it's kind of flipped what he thought they were going to be to what he now thinks they'll be with the changes. So he'll be on today at 4:30. We'll check in with Cowboys camp today at 5:30 with John Machota and Oxnard and Paul's top 5 as well. And then Mike Leach. Who doesn't always want to hear from Mike Leach? We'll hear and see some see some quotes from him about how he thinks you can save college football from it depends what side of the table you're on, the madness, the chaos, or the lack of guardrails. He, in a few quotes, will join us, or those quotes today, a little bit after 4 o'clock. Sikkim, 365 Radio and 365 Sports. I love this text that I received from Dr. Rob Maxey. He's one of the partners, Dr. Rob Maxey at Ideal MRI, with us on day one in April of 2020 when we started this show. Smokey, a lady called Ideal MRI, saying her insurance was making her go to the hospital for an MRI and that it would cost her $1,600 for the knee MRI with any kind of help with her insurance. She called us up and was distraught. When we told her our price, she was elated, relieved. She got her scan. This was a week or two ago. And the results for her doctors. How about that? And it was $497. Her exam was interpreted by a fellowship-trained world-class musculoskeletal radiologist. Her local doctor accessed immediately to image online like that. $497 for an MRI every single time or less at idealmri.com. Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
At Allen Samuels in Waco, the new 2022 Impressive Wagoneer Series 2 and 3 have 2.9% for 72 months, plus $4,500 competitive bonus cash going on now. That's right, and $4,500 bonus cash. This incentive on the new 2022 Wagoneers for a limited time only at Allen Samuels in Waco. First responders get $500 extra cash. Come shop the new car and truck inventory today at Allen Samuels Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfection pizza. Like loads of premium toppings like crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, and fresh sliced veggies pizza. That's Marco's Pizza. Visit marcos.com and make any moment better. And with 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube.
Conference USA Media Days. There's, of course, the Big Ten continues with theirs. Pac-12 on Friday. That ought to be interesting. Great friend of the show and a hell of a football coach. Jeff Traylor, UTSA football coach, joins us, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Do you have like a kiosk off to the side from when you do your UTSA stuff that you sign books, autographs, Dave Campbell's magazines, all that too?
Is there any point in our relationship where the sarcasm and the satire might ever drop off, David, or is it just going to stay full raging your entire career?
Well, that's how we became friends, Jeff. That's kind of how we became friends when you blocked me in your field house. Okay, so what's your biggest strength right now on your football team?
Probably our offensive side of the ball. Whenever you have a quarterback returning, it's a 3-year starter for you. 4 offensive linemen, they're going on their 3rd year. 3 receivers, a tight end. That's huge. We've got a nucleus of our defense, David, but we lost some really great players, so we're going to have to do some coaching actually on that side of the ball. We lost a lot of great players, and so I'd say our offensive side of the ball, I'm really excited about having all those kids back.
You're coming off a fantastic season. Do you see when you have a season like you do, the work ethic change, things step up another level, that you can tell a team that doesn't want to take a step back?
Those kids have just been that way for me since day one. Even before the winning, they put in the work. I've been blessed with some great leaders like Frank Harris and Rashad Wisdom that have bought into us since day one, and I've never sensed any sense of that. We're a new program. We were picked dead last when we got that job. We had nobody on the all-conference team preseason. We haven't forgotten that. That's the fastest way a culture will decline is when you forget where you came from. And when you started your career at Big Sandy, Texas, you were raised in Gilmore your whole life, you don't forget where you came from. And I'm not going to let my kids forget how bad we were picked and how lack of respect we started when we got here. And we're sure not going to get big-headed and full of ourselves now.
So for that culture and all that's going around the belief in San Antonio around the program, what did that mean for everybody involved to see you on the cover of Dave Campbell's?
Well, I'd be lying if I try to give some of that false humility coach talk right now. But when you are in East Texas, I remember as a junior in high school trying to find my name in there, and it wasn't even in the magazine. I was just crushed because I was terrible. It didn't deserve to be in there. But my senior year, it was actually in the magazine. I thought I'd really arrived. So to be on the cover, the most important part about that, if you look in the background behind Joey and I's ugly head, it says representing 1,400 Texas high schools. And that's the pressure I feel every day. I know the better that we do, the better chance it gives the Sean Bells of the world, the Texas high school football coaches that deserve their next chance to be head coaches.
What was it, Jeff, about San Antonio, which is a major city, a large city? What was it about San Antonio that you thought you could help create a college football fan base that loves the program so much?
It's just the seventh largest city in the country, and I didn't see a lot of pro sports there. They had the Spurs, and that's it. Now, once I got there, I really fell in love with the fans. They're very loyal. They're family-based. We have way more women in our crowd than most people. I think we did a study on that. We're like 52% male, 48% female at our games. Probably a lot of that has to do with we're in the Alamo Dome, which is 72 degrees. Their hair never gets messed up. Their makeup doesn't run. But it's very family-driven, and they're loyal. They really do love the Roadrunners. They're grateful for what we've done there. And anywhere we go in the city, someone's flashing birds up or they've got on something that represents the Roadrunners. And really excited that we've given those guys a 10-year commitment and very excited they gave us one back.
It's 72 degrees in the stadium, and we've been in those press boxes before, and it's even colder, which is great.
When we've been at
Cowboys camp in the dead of summer. Jeff, the city of San Antonio, though, I don't know if there's many places that are as large as it is that don't feel like it, too. So it makes it like a big college town at points, doesn't it?
I couldn't agree more. And, I'm from East Texas, and, Dallas still intimidates me. Houston still intimidates me. But when I'm in San Antonio, it just still feels, very big city, small town feel. And that's just the best way I can describe it. And that's the way everybody in the city recognizes it well. We just got a bunch of different pockets that are just like small little towns that we go in and out of. But at the end of the day, it all, combines to be an unbelievable city full of a bunch of multicultural, multi-ethnicity, just a lot of cool stuff, a great vibe that recruits really enjoy coming to visit there as well.
Jeff, you won championships in high school, and now you've done what you've done at UT San Antonio, and you were a part of things in between as well. But as a head coach, what was your most impressive or exciting win? Was it the first one in high school? Because you never know, it starts to become your win-loss record. What was the one that you will always say perhaps is the one that mattered the most?
That's always a tough question, right? If I could give you two, I would appreciate that he cut me a little slack.
Okay.
Our very first game, Gladewater was ranked number 4 in the state, and we were not any good. And I worked on them. I got hired May the 1st. I worked on Gladewater for every straight day in May. We worked all summer long on Gladewater. And when we upset them at home, I knew I had a lifetime contract because when you beat Gladewater, we hadn't beaten them. We hadn't beaten Dansville. We hadn't beaten Gladewater. And that was a huge win for me. That was our first win ever. And then that first state championship win against Jasper in 2004, 49-47. That one, at Stephen F. Austin State, was big, David.
When did you stop worrying about what people said about you?
Tomorrow, you don't want people saying bad stuff about you because you try to do it right, and it bothers you when people come after you. And does your skin become thicker as you do this longer? For sure. But I'd be lying if I told you that when people say derogatory things about me, my coaches, or my players, it doesn't bother us. Do I let it carry with me, David, as long as I used to? No, I don't let it keep me up at night anymore. I don't let it bother me the next day. But I still take criticism very seriously, and I evaluate criticism. And if I don't believe in the criticism, I dismiss it and move on. But if it's accurate, I try to fix it, right? And if you just ignore the David Smokes of the world, you never listen to anybody, how are you going to ever get any better? You're not ever going to get any better.
Wow.
I would like to hear the story one day about how you kicked him out of the field house.
No, he blocked my website out of the school district.
Well, I mean, that's not a terrible idea. It's a big time waster. So I get that. He's just trying to be efficient, Smokey. Now, Coach, you've got a very Texas-heavy schedule, especially in your non-conference this year. As someone who's grown up in this state, this is kind of like, if you want to coach against teams in Texas, this is kind of the dream schedule for you, isn't it?
Or the nightmare, however way you want to look at that. It just depends. I mean, Dana's going to have one of the best teams he's ever had. We've got those guys in 38 days. Then you squeeze in Army with Jeff Monken, which there's nothing worse than having to defend that offense. And then you go to the University of Texas, where Coach Sarkisian done such a great job of recruiting there, and they've got that thing going in the right direction. So, yeah, either way that goes, those first three games, it's very dangerous. If we go, shock the world and get off to another great start, that's dangerous. And if we do what all the experts are predicting, we lose them all, that's very dangerous as well. So it'll be interesting to see how our 2-1-0 triangulates up his culture, how we persevere through those 3 weeks.
Coach, we had Hunter Taylor in here a couple of weeks ago talking about his book, and you're obviously a big part of that. What was it like to kind of see that project as it moved along and see some of the feedback to a story you were a big part of, obviously?
Well, it makes you do some things you don't normally do as a coach, which is just stop and kind of reflect. And as I was driving in from San Antonio into Gilmer for that book signing, it was just kind of like, I had to go through Jacksonville, I had to go through Big Sandy, right? And then I go to Gilmer and had to go through, University of Texas, Austin, and there's so many memories that just came up along that road. And then when I got there, I didn't think anybody was going to be there but my mom. But there was probably 1,000 people from Gilmer there. We signed books for 3.5 hours. So many people just shared so many amazing stories. I thought I knew everybody in Gilmer, but there were people that I didn't know. They were just fans from Longview, Kilgore, that have followed us through the years, that got involved in our Adopt a Buckeye program, that just how they had helped kids for years. And then, I'll be honest, David, I hadn't read the book. Well, that night I went home, and at 10 I was going to read one chapter, and 4 hours later I'd read the whole book. Well, then I went to Jacksonville, did a book signing, and then drove back into San Antonio that night. And again, it just made me reflect because I'd read the book now. And so many memories in that book, so many special people that I might not have just taken the time to think about lately. And it was just a big trip down memory lane. And I will say it's something I'm very proud of because so many of my former coaches are in that book, and some of my former players. You get to hear about Dennis Parker, David Smoak, how important he was and all that. And I know I like to give David heck, and he likes to give it back to me as well. But I was young and immature and didn't really understand the big picture at the time. You got to remember I was 30, and that's an awful young age to be a head coach, especially a hometown, the home country bumpkin back in old Gilmer, Texas. That was a dangerous. If you don't believe in the Lord, that'll make you believe in the Lord that we pulled that off.
You did an incredible job. You earned the book, and it was a great job by Hunter as well, and also the cover with Joey on Texas Football Magazine, Dave Campbell's. So I have a question for you, and I want to use it as an analogy or at least a relationship with high school football. Teams always, they want to win a state championship, but let's say a team that's not been successful, they get to the playoffs, and all of a sudden it's an extra week and maybe 2. And then there's some that are used to going 4, 5, 6 weeks into the year, like you were. I'm talking postseason, and many other schools. Not a lot, but a few. Do you kind of have to teach that with your college program as well, that it's a sustainable start to finish? It's not that you can't take a breath, but you have to learn how to finish the year?
Couldn't agree more. I've said it. It's where I've been blessed. I've got to do it before. Let's look at that rise at Gilmer from 0 to 4. It was the perfect setting, right? Then you had the crashing upset to Canton. Then you had the crashing upset to Liberty Ilo. And that we weren't made to last. We were a kind of a flash in the pan. We were not a Brownwood. We were not a Odessa Permian back in the day, right? We were not built to last. We were not Katy yet. But from 7 to now, Those guys have played past Thanksgiving every single year into Christmas most of those years. That's when you know you're built to last. So now let's look over here to UTSA. We had that unbelievable season, and then the bowl game. We had kids ineligible. We had kids that chose to go to the National Football League. We had COVID. We just did not finish correctly. So there's a reason UTSA has never won a bowl game in the history of their program. We got to know how to finish. So getting there is fun, David, and it's a blast. Staying there and being built to last is a whole nother level that I do feel like that I'm prepared to lead us into that next phase. But it doesn't matter what old Coach Traylor wants. Frank Harris and Rashad Wisdom got to get that done for me, and I'm betting those rascals will.
You are in that contract, and Jeff, again, is at Conference USA Media Days, and you've said that Dr. Campos and others are the ones that have to worry about all the extracurricular stuff. How much does the landscape of college football changing, including conference realignment, how much does that filter in, or how impossible is it to not filter into the locker room or even with your everyday?
Well, you got to be careful to protect your kids. But those kids are not stupid because they've got social media access at all times now. You just can't let the pressure get so much they forget why they're doing it. And if you'll just keep the main thing, let's just keep trusting in our culture pillars. Let's keep believing in what we do every day. The winning will take care of itself. It's just, I know it's corny, it's old-fashioned. Trust the process. Just win the day. And then go be the very best you can be. We'll recruit our tails off. We'll keep great players coming through here. We'll win enough. We're the 7th largest city in the country. We go win ball games. We keep building facilities. They're not going to leave us out. There's too many eyes in San Antonio that watch TV. Somebody's going to want us to be a part of their league as long as we keep putting a good product on the football field.
We saw Lisa, by the way, Campos at that meeting that Baylor had an event here on campus. Are we allowed to bring up your interview process with her and also others? Well, what was it that she helped you with?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say this, but the president asked me about what my relationship was like as a provost. You know, all of our at my SMU, at Arkansas, at Texas, and I mean, you know how I look, David. I don't know what the heck's going on, which is most of the time. And my eyes got real big. I'm like wondering what the heck a provost is. I had an idea what I thought it was, but I wasn't really for sure. And then she threw me up. That's when I knew I was her girl. I knew she was going to take care of me because she was like, you know, Jeff, you've done academics with Charlie. You've done academics with Chad. That's been your role with that academics, right? Which threw me my confidence to go speak on what a provost was. So I knew then I had her. I didn't know if I had the president, but I knew I had Dr. Campos at that moment.
Isn't that amazing how things work? Hey, we're proud of you, man.
I would have been like, I love provosting. Yeah. Provost, that's just, you tell me where to provost, and I will pro that vost.
We're going to Utah. What are we talking about here?
I was going to say, you're going to go play Brigham Young and provost. Exactly. Hey, incredibly proud of you. You earned the book. You've earned the cover. You've earned the success and also continued luck. I know that schedule is full throttle. You wouldn't take it on. I was not surprised you don't have it because of what you've always wanted to take on the challenges. We appreciate your time. I would like to ask you one more thing, if it's okay. You have you are a part of other head coaching searches in college, but UTSA is the one that gave you the opportunity. What did you learn about the other ones, and how much did that fuel you if you didn't get it?
You know, it's a great question. I've been overlooked many times in my career. I think of all the schools I interviewed for before Gilmer gave me my chance. I'll always be forever grateful for Dr. Larry Bennett for giving me my chance. In the next book, when we all decide to retire and go home, I'll list all the universities and all the high schools that never gave me my chance. But it makes me very loyal to Gilmer. And we rewarded them with 15 years where we worked our asses off for those people. And UTSA gave me my chance, and they rewarded me with a 10-year contract. And I hope one day we're writing another book, and we put 15 more years of us working our tails off in the city of San Antonio, David.
Thank you, Jeff. Good luck. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time. Jeff Traylor.
Thanks. God bless.
A true friend, incredible friend. And watched him rise up the coaching ranks, and then, of course, had the amazing dominance at Gilmer. And then after a few jobs in college, he did have opportunities but didn't work out. He gets the job at UTSA, and they did incredibly well last year. When we come back, Well, Startup Waco. Have you heard much about it? John Passavant is next, the CEO. He joins us in studio, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. They have incredible customer service over at Richard Carr. That is what they do from the outset of you trying the buying the car process or just coming up to the lot and looking around. You're going to feel like you are their focal point. You're going to feel like you are one of them as they talk to you about all the great offers, the great deals that they have. And right now they have a lot of great offers and great deals, whether or not you're buying a brand new vehicle or whether you're going the used route. Richard Carr can hook you up either way. So don't wait any longer. Cars, trucks arriving weekly at Richard Carr. Get your name on their inbound vehicle list to reserve a brand new Buick, GMC, or Cadillac before anyone else. But if you do need a car today, then consider one of their dozens of quality pre-owned vehicles. All of them go through a 172-point inspection so you can drive them with peace of mind, and they will pay top dollar on your trade. With dozens of lending options, they'll say yes to loans when others say no. So go online or come by to check out the inventory today. If you want to drive your current car longer, Richard Carr has award-winning service from their collision and service center. Great deals like a price match guarantee on new tires and oil changes as low as $63.95. So again, Richard Carr here in Central Texas, the dealer you can count on for a great deal and superior service. So trust the good local people you can count on. 23 years in Central Texas. Richard Carr, run by proud Wacoans, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6, the Imperial exit.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
It's plain and simple. Waco Custom Marketplace is the one-stop shop for what you need for tailgating, from charcoal, cold beer, and wine. And, of course, customize your order with brisket, tri-tip, sausage, wings, smoked pork tenderloin, country-style or pork spare ribs, marinated beef and chicken fajita meat, ground beef and chili, meat, hot dogs, and burgers, buns, seasoning, sauces, chips. There's fresh baked bread and kolaches every day, breakfast sausage links. And you can also customize your favorite cut of steaks from Select, Choice, or Prime, bacon wrap fillets, ribeyes, New York strip, sirloin, T-bone, and porterhouse. Full service butcher shop includes pork, poultry, beef, chicken, and seafood, serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. Your one-stop shop for beef, pork, poultry, and seafood needs. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Startup Waco serves the greater Waco community by creating a thriving culture of entrepreneurship designed with an inclusion mindset, champions entrepreneurs of all backgrounds in breaking down traditional barriers, collaborating with like-minded institutions, and filling gaps. And you may have seen earlier today, Startup Waco has begun what is an NIL program launched by they're basically an established organization. And now in studio, John Passavant, the CEO of Startup Waco, joins us in studio at 365 Sports. So how did this happen? What NIL is everywhere, but how does this begin?
Thanks for the question. It's great to be with you guys. Thank you for having me over, first of all. So we exist, our organization exists to serve all the entrepreneurs in Waco, McLennan County. And so we were just all sitting around talking almost a year ago and thinking about, gosh, if we're serving all the entrepreneurs around here, now with NIL and what we're seeing develop, and back then it was just developing, why wouldn't we engage student athletes as well? What would be the barriers to that? What would be the advantages to that? How could we help? And so we began developing the program, and it eventually took shape until where we are today.
Was there anything that you wanted to do even earlier? Because, I mean, the NIL, we know it's been like I don't hate to say forest fire because there's places that are having problems with that, but it's been like fire ants. It's just taken off.
Yeah. No, it's everywhere, and we knew that it would. It honestly even surprised me a little bit how quick it kind of went from 0 to 100 so fast, and all the things that were stepping up. We intentionally didn't rush it. We were here long before NIL. We'll be here long after NIL. This is one piece of what we do, and so we wanted to do it right. We wanted to take an approach that was thoughtful, that we felt was in the best interest of the student athletes and also the Waco business community. So yeah, we would have liked to have done it sooner. You always do want to be a first mover, but I think I'm proud of the way we were diligent in concepting it and laying it out, so when we're ready to go.
So let's just say theoretically I'm a student athlete and I come to you interested in something, or a business comes to me wanting to partner with a student athlete. So how does it work from you guys about what goes where and how everybody benefits?
Yeah, so this exchange operates, and our organization operates to support the student athletes. So we're not agents, we're not finding them deals, but we also work with lots of organizations and businesses throughout the city. So if a city came to us and said, hey, I'd love to work with student athletes, we can chat with them and say, okay, here are some possibilities. I mean, there's almost limitless options and ways that students can work with businesses now. And so we want to try to find something that is going to be beneficial for the student athlete and beneficial for the business. So we're not brokering the deals or pulling together basically our member network and the businesses that we work with. We're going to try to find ways that are mutually beneficial. If a student athlete comes to us and says, hey, how do I figure this NIL thing out? We would give them best practices based of them as a business person. It's just getting money or getting paid for something is just the first step in the process. If you're an entrepreneur, you know that. You've got to understand finances. You've got to understand wealth management. You've got to understand marketing and personal brand management. So these are services that we do, and we're already doing them in the community for entrepreneurs. Whether you're a bakery or you have a new tech startup, or you're a student athlete, you've got a business, a brand, something that you're now promoting, and you're trying to optimize and ultimately monetize in the best way.
How much do you find that younger people kind of already have a grasp of what direction they'd like to go, and then those who kind of loosely know that they want to do something, but they're just not exactly sure what avenue or where to go?
It's a great question. I would put it kind of on par with the community entrepreneurs that we work with already. You'd be surprised. Some folks come in with just a general idea. I'd like to do X or to start this or do something, and they don't really know much beyond that. Some of the best ideas are just those tiny little kernels of is this possible? Could this work? I think it could. It's a pain point that they feel, but they have no business management or structure skills or anything, so we can help with that. With student athletes the same way. We've already, with student athletes that we've worked with, have done everything from clothing brands to apps, consumer apps. I mean, everything. So it's kind of all over the map. I think a lot of times with student athletes, the time is just so constrained. I mean, right now they're not even in season, and it is just full on, especially in basketball and football. And so when you add in academics to that coming up, it's just time is going to be a real issue. And so they're going to have their kind of team set up to say, okay, if I want to advance this business, how am I going to do it effectively?
How does your experience, in your opinion, apply to athletes and maybe just NIL in general? Yeah, well, so personally, my story coming, kind of how I got to Waco was from Pennsylvania via New York City. And when I was 22 years old, got into the fashion world. Totally different than sports, but similar in the sense of you're young, you excel and sort of quickly get to the top of the field, and you can be earning lots of money and have lots of people around you. You're all of a sudden thrown into a world of contracts and negotiations and business managers and exclusive rights, and how do you price things, and how do you know what's a good deal and what isn't, and who do you trust? And so I personally went through that a little bit, and so made some good decisions, made a lot of really, really bad decisions. So when I first learned about this, in the middle of last year, it was my thought personally went immediately to, gosh, they're going to need some help. Every kid coming into some situation like this needs some help understanding how to structure this and do it in a way that's effective for them. And so that was a personal kind of draw in for me. But then when I realized that, look, it's not just about NIL and selling image rights, but it's also potentially about entrepreneurship. I mean, the way I look at it from our organization's perspective, we've got 550 potential entrepreneurs that are just working right across the river there. And if they have that desire and want to engage and see what's possible, that's where hopefully we can step in and help. Where is the money? Who do you have people already secured to be a part of this? Because the NIL is about name, image, likeness, and also taking advantage of who you are, and then also earning that money as a student athlete. Yeah, so we've done our best, and we have counsel that's been working with us and understanding the changing rules, and I'm sure you guys are up on it, and how this affects the way a program develops is something that you guys would be the experts on, and understanding that how this is going to shift the dynamics there. But from our perspective, there are donors that just want to see the program be able to compete in this space. This is a reality, whether we like it or not, whether it's positive or not. And so I see this as one of, and just to be clear, this is our thing. There might be other initiatives, other things that stand up that Baylor puts together, other groups put together that want to help also, and that's great. This is just our expertise, and so we wanted to do something. So as a nonprofit, there's donors that want to come in and they want to say, hey, we want to help this happen. And now it's great that you can actually not just sort of give money to student athletes, but actually put it through a program of student athlete development where, yes, they're able to receive funds for their work, but it's also being able to be something that hopefully lays something for the future for them. Have you had any experience with Baylor beforehand? Personally? Yeah, no, not you, but the company as far as this business. Sure. So Startup Waco is a public-private organization. So we're made up of constituents from all different facets of the Waco community, from the business community, the nonprofit community, the higher ed community. So we've got representatives that we work with all over the business school. We do a lot with them. We do a lot with student entrepreneurs there. And so, we've got some experience in working there. Never before with athletics. This was a new venture for us, but it wasn't really, it's something that's kind of more tied into the business community in Waco than it really is in athletics. We want to take what we're doing here and apply it to student athletes, not just, it's a totally unique thing than kind of how we're working with the programs themselves and other schools.
How much did that time that you've spent, because again, you could have just a year ago been like, we're doing it, and then we'll figure it out as we go, but figured out beforehand, before you announced all this, allowed you to build what would be good, valuable stuff for everybody, as opposed to this kid's going to get money and, say he did it for Habitat for Humanity and move on. Yeah. No, that's a great question. And I think,
A lot of value for taking our time. I think if you just think of money coming through, it's very single dimensional. One thing happens, this happens, and that's it. We wanted to take a multi-dimensional approach that wasn't just about funds. It wasn't just about NIL, but it was about the student athletes first. It kind of put them in the center of this crosshairs of development and opportunity. And so we think that can happen here in Waco. We think it's a good thing for Waco and ultimately a good thing for Baylor if we can get some of these success stories coming through of successful businesses coming out of a program like this. If we had just kind of rushed it, if we had just jumped in and tried to play that game, I think it maybe could have been effective, but it would have been short-lived. It would have been a flash, sort of a flash in the pan. We want to create something enduring. We want to create something that can actually be a legacy initiative that is something that's around for a long time.
You hear stories, and other schools who have had NIL collectives or not. I know you're not a collective, but right. I mean, Texas Tech just announced a $2.5 million deal for football players on scholarship or walk-ons, and we know that there's other places as well. That's just one of the more recent. Do you envision being large enough to be able to help whoever you're with, Baylor or others, compete at that level?
Yeah, the stories of what's coming out around the country are everywhere, and they're varied. I think our approach, the fact that it's layered, the fact that there's more to it than just a single way of looking at NIL dollars or even community engagement, gives us an advantage. It took some time, but I think that we've got more here to invest in. So I think we're a more attractive option for donors or businesses or people that want to participate. To me, it's sort of taking this idea of NIL and helping it kind of evolve a bit into something that is actually meaningful. So I hope that we will be able to do that.
So some of the NIL businesses, collectives, I get confused myself, they were set up and like they are just coming off like brand new. Yeah. You are established.
That's right.
Is that part of the advantage as well?
That's probably what I would define. The main thing that I would use to define us as not a collective. The reason we're not a collective is because it wasn't something that was set up for the purposes of NIL. This is just an extension of the programming that we're already doing in the community. We're now shifting and applying and targeting student athletes, and this allows us to do that. So it's really not a collective in that sense. What this is just a student athlete development program that we're thrilled to kind of be able to do right here at Baylor.
Yeah, if I had to draw, like if somebody said draw what you think the like representation or shape of a collective is, it would just be a bunch of squiggly lines, like just running around, because we don't know.
Right.
But you guys kind of already have a structure and a shape, so you don't have to be this just ball of squiggly lines that people can figure out.
That's right.
On.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that most donors, even if a donor wants to see the program be able to succeed in this, I don't think they want to see that happen at the expense of student athletes. And I'm not saying that's what other collectives and other people are doing. I'm just saying that we wanted to make sure that everything we were doing, even with NIL, was something that was done with the benefit of the student athlete. And I think that if we focus on that and we do it well, that's going to come around full circle and benefit the program in ways that these a bit more thrown together collectives won't have the function to be able to do.
Will you be setting up appearances? Will you be setting up student athletes at restaurants or autograph type opportunities? Is that something that you're capable of doing?
Yes, we are. And I would even love, as this develops, to find ways to engage the fan base, for people to be able to connect with student athletes in ways that weren't possible before. So we've just launched today. We've got a lot of really good ideas on the board, some stuff that we're going to be rolling out. But yeah, all of those kind of things that you understand and hear about ways that student athletes can engage in NIL activities are things that we'll be able to do. You
also, I've learned a little bit about you along the way last just a couple of days or so. You have also given back quite a bit to minority ownership, correct? Helping companies get off the ground and helping them be successful as well?
That's right. When this organization was established, it was really important to the founders to say, we don't want to just help high growth companies or tech companies start here in Waco. We want to invest in all entrepreneurs in Waco. So, to do that, you really have to focus on where the gaps are, on where even historically there's been some people that haven't had access to the kinds of things you need to start a successful business, from capital to marketing expertise to any type of advisory that is needed. So we do a lot of focus on that. I would say, especially coming out of COVID, I would say about 80% of the businesses that we work with are minority or women owned, and they're here in Waco, and they're small businesses, they're quality of life businesses, Main Street businesses, as well as the higher tech, more high growth focused ones. We do that as well, but a big part of what we do and always will do is on that side.
The student athletes, I'm sure, all have their own goals, and if it's not the professional level, which is a very, like what, Paul, 1% or so that end up having a chance to play at the next level in the NFL and football. Let's say someone wants to be involved in the restaurant business, and that's truly their passion for whatever reason, from their family or just something that is that also where you take them step by step, along with anybody else, step by step on how to create that and handle all that?
100%.
Okay.
And we can't possibly house all the expertise needed for every type of business, but that's why we're a partner organization, and we've got amazing restaurants here locally that have done amazing things that we could connect them to. Nobody builds a business in a vacuum. I don't care if you're Jeff Bezos or you're a student athlete who's never done it. You need people around you, good people that have the expertise that you don't have or the resources that you don't have. So yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing that we want to do.
You mentioned the fashion business. I think everyone might have a problem or concern about student athletes who get too much too early. Not that they don't earn it, because we've been over that. But let's say they get too much too early. Then there are taxes, and there's a lot of the pull. Right. Did you experience that yourself when you were in the fashion? Is that what you mentioned, that you didn't? Sometimes your mind was a blur.
Oh, 100%. And I made almost every mistake that a young person who comes into resource can make, and even understanding, just having a strategy around how you build a team around yourself of advisors, of friends, of financial advisors, wealth management advisors, business advisors. These are all different than agents that are actually out there getting you new work. You have to understand that it takes work. It takes work to develop a team. I made the mistake a lot of times of just thinking that the professional across the table for me had my best interest in mind. And unfortunately, that's not the real world, and they don't. And I got taken advantage of in ways, but then I also learned, and I also made good, smart decisions down the line. And I would say I'm an entrepreneur, became an entrepreneur, and I'm doing what I'm doing today because I discovered some of my passion for entrepreneurship through that process.
By the way, a Startup Waco located on Austin Avenue, just around the corner from us. It made it easy to get you over here. How many people are a part of Startup Waco?
So we have a broad membership community of businesses, of over close to 500 businesses. We also operate a co-working space, which is just sort of our office right there on Austin Avenue, and we have 37 companies that office out of there. Some of them are solopreneurs, some of them are remote workers, some of them have 2 or 3. There. So, really we're a program organization. We run that space, but there are other amazing co-working spaces in Waco. So we love seeing that come up.
Final thing, when people go to startupwaco.com, is there going to be a drop-down box for this specific, what you've been announcing or what you announced today?
There absolutely will. In fact, today we're launching the GXG Exchange. There's its own website, gxgexchange.org, but coming soon on Startup Waco's website, we're sort of creating an initiative called Startup Athletics, which is going to house all of these different programs and things that we do towards student athlete development broadly.
And GXG, I saw this on the site, is green and gold. That's pretty simple. Thank you, John. Appreciate the
Guys, it's a
insight.
real pleasure.
Appreciate you. Congratulations. Good luck with it.
Thank you.
John Passavant, CEO of Startup Waco. Go to startupwaco.com if you want more information. We discuss NIL quite a bit. You hear about things like collectives or whatever. It's the first time I think we've had Open Doors on, and they're a part of Baylor starting in about a week as well. And it's good to kind of get the insight on it. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco. Now available on DoorDash. So look, if you're, can't make the trip for whatever reason, you can just order the fine spirits and craft beers and whatever you need from Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Maybe it's you need a jar of cocktail chairs. You can get those there too. You can get all kind of great stuff at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Great promotions, great quality, great variety, the best selection of locally sourced Texas whiskeys in Waco, where you're talking about Balcones, TX, Devil's River, Garrison Brothers, all there at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Great selection, the best selection of craft beers as well. Jeffrey and Kyle and everybody rotating those out. Steve, churning that roster all the time. It's the summertime right now. It doesn't feel like it, but in a couple months it'll be the fall, and they'll churn the roster again. They'll churn the roster in the winter. That's what they do at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Always have the best variety of craft beers around. Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank. Check them out on Instagram or order on DoorDash.
Cars priced right both day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations. Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Did you know that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a partner of the City of Waco? Did you know that we are open to the public? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers day passes to the public for only $10 a day, and we offer money-saving memberships. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including bar, yoga, boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. There are free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, elliptical machines, and much more on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training available where you can be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed and kids club, 17 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit our website at wacotennis.com. Call us at 254-753-7675 or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Corral on 2nd and 15 as they're chopping down in his legs, and then they take him down high as well. Ika finished it.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
You know, most of the attention after the Big Ten added USC and UCLA, of course, there was a lot about, okay, what does that mean for ACC and the grant of rights and all that? And what about some of their bigger names? And then, of course, what would the Pac-12 do? That makes sense, just like it did back in the summer a year ago with the Big 12. And then who might go after whom and who is, you know, like the Pac-12? Are they going to add, or is it going to be the Big 12 that looks at the Pac-12? Today, CBSSports.com and Dennis Dodds, the Big Ten evaluating the worthiness of adding the names of the teams, Cal, Oregon, Stanford, and Washington, to expand its conference to at least 20 teams. Of course, their Big Ten media days are going on right now. We're not targeting, Kevin Warren said. Like I said, my focus is on taking care of our 14 institutions, but there does seem to be the opportunity there, and Dennis in his article making the comment, in fact, that it could happen before the season begins.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I alluded to like an hour ago. This was, I guess, like the new hot topic in realignment talk. We just didn't dive into it. So, yeah, this is what I meant by circling back around to the original conversation that we were having like a month ago. And there's nothing to that. I mean, one of the guys talking the most crap about the Big 12 right now, a Pac-12 writer, who I don't have anything against, but if you're going to start talking trash, then, it is what it is. But, right like a day or two before this all broke loose, he was saying on these very airwaves that nothing was going to happen, like no chance whatsoever. And what's happened since then? The complete opposite of what he said. Like, since then, the Pac-12 has been just like the house is on fire for the last month. And so that was not at all the tone when he talked with us, but that has very quickly become the tone. And now the tone's shifting to being like, it's anti-Big 12 or anti-Pac-12 or whatever. And just know that like some of these goofier accounts don't speak for everybody in the Big 12 or everybody in the Pac-12. Like, I don't think that crazy Utah fan is what everybody's thinking, or crazy Cal fans what everybody's thinking. And there's certainly some Big 12 folks being pointed out that definitely don't speak for me or anybody up here. I know that much. You can find them basically every time realignment rolls around. But, yeah, I mean, if those are the targets and that's the direction they may go, then that opens up all sorts of other possibilities. But this is what I was talking about with Kevin Warren is like, I don't know if y'all quite understood what I was saying. He said a lot.
But didn't say much.
But he didn't say any details. Yeah. So, like, expansion, we're open to it. But he didn't say anything specifically. But then this comes out right afterwards. And for all we know, he could be the unnamed source. Like, he could have said that, hey, off the record, boom, here's the teams we're looking at. And, like, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Would that surprise y'all? No. So, like, you do have to put some stock into it. I do think there's a lot of just blank being thrown against the wall. But I obviously there's something to this because we keep, whether it's because there's just great sources who are bringing us back around, or because the guys who are making these moves are feeding these particular moves, that we're still talking about the same Pac schools that we were talking about a month ago. So there's clearly something here. Kevin Warren, again, said a lot. I mean, he's opened the door to expansion. He talked about being coast to coast. He talked about taking over late night time slots. So, I mean, all his signs are pointing towards the death of another conference here soon. Well, and who that is, like, it looks like it could be the Pac. The Pac thinks it could be the Big 12. A lot of people think they should join together, but neither side really appears to want to do that. And so are they going to, duel it out and feel like I'm the last man standing only to get, the throat slit right by the two big ones right after you get done doing that? I mean, that's what's going to be fascinating. But yeah, I mean, the Pac is a very curious little puzzle right now.
Here's what I don't want to see is anyone fall apart. I don't.
No,
and I know sometimes it's the finger pointing or we're better, beating the chest, and I get all that. But one of the things you were talking about, who's feeding the information. We were incredibly fortunate last year following the Texas-Oklahoma SEC story. I don't know what we did, but we were incredibly fortunate to all of a sudden have somebody right smack in the middle of everything that was going on after that, from the chaos to being knocked on the canvas to maybe even out. Something we did, I don't know. But just because somebody told me that X, Y, Z, and maybe capital A were being targeted didn't mean we just said it. You then have to check it, and you have to do your due diligence, and I wish, and I'm not saying that's not the case, but it would help a lot of people get off that emotional roller coaster of this right now with all of the various stories.
Now, there's some interesting caveats to them joining, the most of which in this report by Dennis Dodd is that Cal, Oregon, Stanford, and Washington would not bring requisite value as the 16 teams that make up the league in 2024, which could lead to them taking substantially less revenue and just to have long-term security in the Big Ten, because if you're getting between $21 and $30 million per school, which is kind of varying reports, we kind of got the number from Jason Shearer that 24.5 was thrown out there to the Pac-12.
At least the initial low ball.
The low ball offer. Well, if 24.5 or $30 million is what you're going to get, would you not take, instead of 80 to 100, would you take 70? And be like, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to.
Or hell, I'd take 60-50.
Just for the security, yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes there's a scale of when you join, you don't get the full shares, and eventually you do. And then eventually maybe that is the case as well.
This is what I was talking about earlier. I wasn't trying to be grumpy, and I don't know how it came across when I was talking about – and then we had to basically go into a guest, so I couldn't really follow up. But I was talking about, this report really, and if you're adding – let's say this all comes to fruition, which, as we know, there's lots of reports, and a lot of it just doesn't end up happening. But if you're to add those 4 schools, you're now, a 20-team conference, or would it be an 18-team conference with those 4? It'd be, a 20-team?
It'd be 20, yeah.
So a 20-team conference, that just seems sort of ridiculous to me. I don't know. I mean, I know the NFL is built that way, but they have less than 20 teams in their conferences. And then that's not even counting the ACC schools that are still out there ultimately. And then whatever bones you'd want to pick, from the Big 12 and what was remaining there. So, for all this talk about super leagues, that's why I just said it just almost feels silly, because if all the stuff that people are speculating on comes true, then basically it's everybody already involved with college football, except we're just like, hey, Washington State, sorry, but you're odd man out. Everybody else is still here. We're just under 2 umbrellas rather than 5.
Yep.
And so it just seems sort of silly to me if that's the direction it's headed. And that's why I'm curious of, where is that sweet spot, like Mac Rhodes was talking about yesterday? Is a sweet spot a couple of 20-team conferences? Is the sweet spot a couple 24-team conferences? Is a sweet spot 5 leagues turning into 2, and maybe 2 teams are unlucky enough to not be involved? And then it's we did all of this just to get to the point of where it's 2 instead of 5? I don't know.
Here's a question I have, and I just put this up on the chat. How do you decide a conference champion if there are 20 teams? The only true way for me you can do that, you have 2 divisions, which we now know schools or conferences are going away from that. 1 with 10, 1 with 10. They all play each other like the Big 12's been doing, and then you have the division against the division. Isn't that the only way you could actually have a
But here's the problem.
Unless you have a playoff within your conference, and then you go to –
But here's the problem with 10 and 10. That means you have a 10-game non-conference schedule or conference schedule. Your non-con games, believe me, you're not going to play 2 more Big 10 or 9 game.
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
and then so it's back to what we're doing. So then you're never going to see. So Ohio State is never going to see Nebraska. They're never going to see USC.
Well, that'd be good with me.
Yeah, that's another question I have though. Is why would you even have non-conference games?
No, that's right. Yeah, you would almost not do that, and then you're taking away which to me the best part of college football season are those games in September that are the elite teams, the high-level teams, high-ranked teams playing each other in non-conference games from one part of the country or another.
Yeah, I like those. I don't so much enjoy the 5-hour 63-0 ass kicking when you've got Baylor versus Alcorn State or something. That in August is a little old after about an hour and a half. You can I think we know the end result here, but I know we've got 2.5 hours left anyways. That's not so much fun. But yeah, I mean that's a question that I had, and one of hundreds of questions, and that's why I found Kevin Warren's talk to be fascinating, and yet I didn't really walk away with any extra information, just kind of confirmations on what feels like sort of the direction we're headed. But to your point, Kevin Warren doesn't care. Kevin Warren doesn't care about anybody that's not involved with the Big Ten. He does not care. He made that clear, and I don't know if it was the SI interview or it was his press conference. I can't remember now. It's all running together. But, I mean, he let it be known with the whole get on or get off. You're either going to get on this train with everybody else and go the direction we're going, or you're going to get ran over. I mean, that's basically his message. And so it was kind of a warning sign or a warning shot to anybody who's, I guess, still feeling like we're going to keep this thing as traditional as possible, that, if you're going to do that, you're not going to be involved in what we're going to be involved with. And we know what they're going to be involved with is the highest level of whatever college football is going to look like here pretty soon. So I think there's going to be some schools that have to, make some big decisions and some hard decisions, and a lot of schools that are going to be fighting for, fighting to prove their worth and why they belong in whatever level this is. But I don't know. I do feel like if you suddenly go to, let's say a 20-team conference, like, I know why on paper that makes the Big Ten seem better because of Cal's academics and Stanford's academics, and it's all about just flaunting what you've got and all that, right? It's all about we're the best at this and we're the best at this. So they could argue we're the best in football and we're the best at going coast to coast and we're the best in academics and we're the best when it comes to all these different things. And that would be true, but you're also like a 20-something team conference. So, like, what? I don't know. It just feels a little less special. It's one thing to brag and beat your chest when you're the Big Ten and you're what feels like a college football conference. It's an entirely other thing to beat your chest when you're basically a mini league all on your own, and it's just a bunch of teams that you went and grabbed and say, hey, look at all we won. And it's like, wait a second. No, you just bought those things, basically. So it's like a big corporation that's just eating the smaller corporations that, it's weird.
Look, it's a business model that works in America. Why not copy it?
It's America.
Tony, he's a Pac-12 guy, and he has fed us some good stuff over the last year or so, and we appreciate him. But he said, hey, I have an idea. What if you took a 20-team conference, split it into 2 divisions, 10 each. One's called the Big Ten and one's called the Pac-10,
exactly.
And the winners play each other on January 1st in the Rose Bowl.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Who would have thought of such a thing?
Well, and that's they're getting dangerously close to doing that and just leaving. Yeah, exactly. You said. But the other thing is, like, so if the complaint that everybody has about these conferences is that you can be in the same conference and never play each other. If you have 2 10-team divisions, you're going to create that problem again, right?
Are you going to play everybody in your own division? That's 9 if you do, right?
Yeah.
Just like the Big Ten.
And then you're not going to play non-conference games, so you're going to play 3, and it's still going to be a long time.
And here's the other thing is, okay, you got to establish your rivalries, but you add enough teams to where, all right, you think that on paper, at least, it looks like, and this is the Big Ten more so than the SEC right now. The SEC's got a couple of these, but not as many as it looks like the Big Ten might be compiling of, hey, man, we're going to Big Ten. We're going to see Ohio State, USC, and then Ohio State, Wisconsin, and then Ohio State, Michigan, and Ohio State, UCLA, and Ohio. But then pretty soon we're going to get to where it's like it's also Ohio State, Purdue, and Ohio State, Cal, and Ohio. And it's kind of basically what it was, like the same thing that you were already doing. You're just flipping a West Coast school that's similar to this Midwest school, and it's Cal rather than Purdue. But what's the big difference? I guess TV ratings are the big difference. But
here's a comment. In the 10 years that Nebraska's been a part of the Big Ten, this is I think it's from Red Wine. They have played Ohio State 8 times, and they've played Indiana twice.
Yeah, again, it's wonky. It doesn't make sense.
Now, there was a time when Nebraska could have played Ohio State 8 times,
but they're not
5 or 6.
But they're not in the same side of the division as Nebraska. So their scheduling model is off, and so everybody wants people to change that anyway. Here's what I would do. I would, if I were the Big Ten, schedule-wise, you have 4 or 5 team divisions, and you take the top 2 with tiebreakers and all that. That way, your schedule rotates around a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll let others do that.
But if you're doing 12, yeah. But
Craig also brought up
Paul Foster disagreed with me.
Good, thank you, Paul. The prestige of winning a conference title. That I don't know if that means anything here pretty soon.
Well,
because you may not even have conference champions. Just everybody play. You have your schedule, the way it rotates. You don't even have a conference championship game. Of course, they will because of the money, and you go straight into a playoff.
Yeah, but that's one of those things. Is like that's fun to talk about, but like we need to know like who's just playing where.
Yeah,
I mean that's the thing is I wasn't feeling real well last night. I was attempting to write this Mac Rhodes article. I just felt under the weather, and I kind of revisited this morning. I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that he said a lot, but he really didn't say much of anything. And I don't mean like in the Kevin Warren way. If Kevin Warren said a lot without getting detailed, I mean Mac kind of just.
I saw that on the message boards. The same type of opinion you have.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And so I was just struggling with it because first my brain was just sort of foggy and out of whack, but also because I'm just like, I don't think he's really saying anything here because, I guess what he was saying was nothing can happen until like 2 things happen. Like all this stuff we're talking about, like nothing can really happen until Notre Dame makes a decision and until the Big Ten signs their TV deal. Until then, everything's on the table and everything's kind of off the table as well because they hold all the cards at the moment. Like in theory, yes, the Big Ten could go and poach Cal and Stanford right now if they wanted to, and I'm sure they would show up on hands and knees thankful that they got an invite. But you don't really want to just invite them until you figure out like who else might be coming or who, might whether or not that would include a Notre Dame or not, and what that does to you. So, yeah, it's just a weird spot where Kevin Warren's got kind of the world by the you-know-whats right now, and they're working out this massive mega TV deal, and until the Big 12 and the Pac-12 can figure out what networks are available and what time slots are available and what teams are available and what, all of those are massive question marks right now, and until we get some sort of actual concrete information, that's why you're seeing every rumor under the sun thrown out as plausible, is because we're just trying to figure out what's going on. And the thing is, not even the ADs in some conferences know what's going on right now.
How would you describe it? Is it like there is this blood flow of all this to get to this end line, and yet there's plaque or cholesterol, plaque in your teeth, cholesterol that's in your blood, and it's you can't get it because there's so much in the way. From Jamie, this is why the SEC commissioner said 16 is the perfect number. At least that's what he said. 4-pod system. You play all your pod rivals every season, and you rotate 2 games at each of the 3 pods. In 2 years, you play everybody.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for being elite, right? Like, I know words like that get watered down. Like, every little thing that's kind of cool is like, that's so great. Kind of like we just devalue, I think, some words. But if you think of the word elite and what that really means, like every team, I think, in America's got like some like Trojan elite or Bear elite or what, everybody uses that term. But there are very few teams that are actually elite. Mm-hmm. And
that's what makes them elite.
Exactly.
The definition of the word.
Exactly. But, you look at the Big Ten and, that UCLA, USC move, that's an elite damn move right there. Like, that's okay. Now we're talking here. Same thing with Oklahoma and Texas. But I do think if you start adding Cal and you start adding all these other programs, and it kind of waters it down to where, again, you just go from a super conference into a mini league. Right now, those are super conferences in the making. They add 4 more teams apiece depending on who those are. They might remain super conferences, or they just turn into mini leagues, and you're still getting a good number of like great team versus mediocre team on a regular basis because Indiana's still there and, Purdue and whoever else. And I know that some of those teams may rise up on occasion, but you get the gist of it. So that's what's just kind of puzzling to me is how high do you really want to go before you start watering down this great thing that seems so elite? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it does. All right, we have to take a break here. And we will hear from Phil Steele. He has the magazine. In fact, where is it? Here it is. Not sure how you can get into that or not. This is the magazine. It's like Dave Campbell's Texas Football magazine's the Bible of Texas high school football. And this one at times has been considered the Bible, many times the Bible of college football. It is filled with numbers and data and rankings, and Phil explains kind of what he does. It takes him about 7 months to put everything together. So he was on with me earlier today. I was able to record the interview, including, you have this magazine and you pump it out. And back in the day, spring drills was in March or April, and by then everything's done. Now you have the transfer portal. How does that affect the guy who's trying to send out a magazine and get it out by July? I asked him that. Paul asked me to ask him that, and I did. And he gave me, I thought, an incredibly insightful answer. Phil Steele. Phil Steele's College Football magazine. Next, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Right now, Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat in the month of July. Twice as much inventory and more in transit to their location at Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. Allen Samuels, the new 2022 impressive Wagoneer Series 2 and 3, 2.9% financing for 72 months, plus $4,500 in competitive bonus cash going on right now. Also, the incentive on the 2022 Wagoneer is for a limited time only, so make sure you check with your client manager when you're there on their site. First responders get $500 in extra bonus cash. Also, the 2022 Ram 1500 Crew Cab, the Lone Star, with special values up to $7,000 and get $1,500 bonus cash, 2.9% financing for 72 months. Durable, functional, stylish pickup trucks inside the cab, as nice as any SUV. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. That's where I bought my car back a couple of years ago. AJ was the person who handled it, and he was spectacular. If you can't get to AJ, somebody else can help you out. And tell Ted Teague, we said hi from Sikkim 365 Radio at Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543. Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive. It's a staple of the Waco economy. What are some of the things you have coming up?
You know, we kind of call ourselves the wedding ring store. We do all of our own custom work in-house. I've got 2 expert jewelers on staff every day. We can make anything from scratch. We kind of pride ourselves. Probably 9 out of 10, every engagement ring we do is actually made custom to what the customer wants.
People look at that, oh my God, I can't afford it. I can't afford something like that. You've shown me examples that you could fit pretty much any budget.
It doesn't cost any more to custom make something. You still have gold, you still have diamonds, and you still have labor. Best thing about a custom piece is if you have any old jewelry or heirloom jewelry or something passed down from a grandma or somebody, we can take that jewelry and use it towards your wedding ring for the sentimental value, and then you've got the product, and then it's just a little bit of labor and a little bit of design on your part of what you actually want.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Phil Steele's College Football Preview, the magazine. I saw this described, and it was a long, long time ago. I've seen so many different ways of what people say about your magazine, but basically Christmas in July, all of that other thing. What's the favorite way someone has described your magazine to you?
I guess the common refrain that I hear is the Bible of college football, and I greatly am honored to be described that way by so many because I pour 7 months of work into this thing. thing every year, all the way from the Sunday after Thanksgiving all the way through the start of June, and talked to 120, 131 head coaches. So it really is a labor of love, and it's good that so many people need this magazine every year.
Well, as a member of the Football Writers Association, I have your online, the digital part of it, the hand-delivered, and also, of course, Phil Steele Plus, and it's amazing. How does the transfer portal change how you have to go about your business, if at all?
Well, that's a great question, David, and let me give you a prime example of it. I write the magazine in three process. The first one is a postseason write-through. Now, naturally, I've watched all the games during the course of the year, but then I read through every article that is written about the team for the entire football season. Sort of really gets me into the flavor of each position, all the ebbs and flows of the season, and then I do the first write-through, and that means, okay, what kind of shape was the unit coming into last year? What happened? What can we look forward to this year? And when I did that with USC this year, I had them about middle of the pack in the Pac-12, which makes sense because they were a 4-8 team last year. They had a brand new head coach, and they only had 11 returning starters, so the expectations were low. Then the second right-through process is my pre-spring. We get the rosters from the schools, update the freshmen coming in, update the power ratings, and go through and update the information. Then the third right-through is after I talk to the head coach. And this year, I was on the phone, ironically, with Coach Lincoln Riley the day he signed Jordan Addison from Pitt. Now, all of a sudden, USC had the quarterback coming in from Oklahoma, and Caleb Williams, my number one QB out of high school, is a Heisman candidate. They had my number 2 rated wide receiver out of high school last year, and Mario Williams, who had signed at Oklahoma, did well and moved over here. They had the Blitnikoff winner in Jordan Addison, a 1,000-yard rusher in Travis Dye from Oregon. The offensive line, which I had questions about, Coach Riley told me he felt really good about the top-end experience and didn't think it would inherit this much talent. And then defensively, they added like 12 to 13 transfers, like a Shane Lee, who started 13 games as a freshman at Alabama. All of a sudden now, USC was number 1 most improved team in the country and a contender in the Pac-12 South. So that never happened 15 years ago. The transfer portal has definitely changed how I have to adjust things during the 7 months of the magazine season.
Baylor probably last year was the most improved team based on what they did the first year with COVID, and Dave Aranda go 12-2, win the Big 12, and also win the Sugar Bowl. Your thoughts about Dave Aranda and Baylor?
Dave Aranda is one of the best. I mean, I've known him as one of the best defensive minds in college football for some time. It started a long time ago when he was at Wisconsin, and the one year they lost practically everybody off the defense, and I'm like, okay, well, they're definitely going to be weaker, and they turned out to be better. And I'm like, who is this defensive coordinator? And I've been following him closely ever since. I thought he did a great job at LSU, and now as a head coach, he's proven that he can be a great leader and the defensive mastermind. I mean, Baylor's defense is phenomenal. So I'm a huge fan of Dave Aranda. I think he is one of the not up-and-coming head coaches, but also already has got himself as one of the top head coaches out there. And, you know, with Baylor this year, the one thing you look at is the line of scrimmage, and they are strong. They have a number 7 rated offensive line, number 4 rated defensive line. A guy like Apu Ike in the middle is a tremendous player at the nose guard position. The linebacking core does lose a couple of draft picks, and the 2nd and 3rd round draft picks, mind you, but it's still going to be solid. And the secondary loses a couple of draft picks. I don't know if Baylor's going to be quite as good defensively as they were last year, but they're still going to be one of the best. And then offensively, probably a better pass game with Blake Shapen taking over there. There is some question marks at running back as they lose Smith and Ebner, but I like the replacements. As mentioned, the offensive line is solid, as is the receiving core. Now, the schedule is not as favorable as last year. This year they have to play at Oklahoma. They have to play at Texas. They also have to play at Iowa State, a tricky game. So the schedule's rather difficult, but I definitely see Baylor as one of those teams that is a clear-cut contender to get back to the Big 12 title game.
If, in fact, you had returning experience, you'd love to have the quarterback back, which they technically do, although very young, and in just 2.5 games last year. But would you rather have both the offense and defensive line as where you start all your strength when you have what's coming back?
Absolutely. And, I do a lot of things, and I think my ratings differ from most a lot of times, and it's because I put so much emphasis on the offense and the defensive line. I think if you're strong at the line of scrimmage, especially at defensive front, get pressure on the quarterback, it really makes your whole defense defense better, and really with the offensive line, if you can open up holes in the run game and protect the quarterback, then all those skilled players are going to be better. I think it's probably the most underrated, but the most important part of college football.
Among the Big 12 teams, who do you think might have the most upside that might be a sleeper?
You know, I could make a case for any of the bottom teams in the Big 12. I think we're going to have a lot of upsets this year as a potential. I mean, Kansas State, I wouldn't consider a sleeper after watching the Big 12 media days. I think they're considered one of the top 5 teams. So let's go ahead and put the top 5 teams, non-sleeper availability, in Oklahoma, Baylor, Oklahoma State, Texas, and Kansas State. Now, if we do that and we look at the bottom of the Big 12, I think Iowa State, Matt Campbell, is exactly where he wants to be. That's back in the underdog role. He didn't fare very well last year, ranked in the preseason top 10. But here's something I'll throw out at you. I think Hunter Deckert has a better year statistically than Brock Purdy did last year. He's a better deep ball threat. He's got a guy in Xavier Hutchinson to throw to, Dimitri Stanley, Jalen Knoll. The offensive line's improved. They've got players on defense like Will McDonald, Orion Vance, the TJ Tampa. They are loaded defensively. And despite the fact they only have 8 returning starters and nobody's really talking about Iowa State, this is where Matt Campbell does his best work. When I went over the team with Coach Sonny Dykes, he was very pleasantly surprised with the talent that he inherited at TCU. And they, of course, have got a couple of good quarterbacks, Chandler Morris and Max Duggan, and they've got some talent throughout. So I think TCU is going to surprise some folks. West Virginia, I thought, got a big upgrade at quarterback, bringing in J.T. Daniels, who is at USC and Georgia. And really, that completes the team. They're strong at the line of scrimmage, both the offensive and defensive line. They've got some skilled players. I think they could surprise. And then Joey McGuire, just a ball of energy at Texas Tech. I got off the phone talking to him and I wanted to run through a wall. This guy's and he's got a very experienced team coming back with my number 46 experienced team in the country. I think they could surprise. And then even Kansas. Texas fans learned last year. You know, Lance Leipold stepped into a tough situation with Kansas last year. He took over a team after spring practice, didn't really even have a single practice with the team, and it took some growing pains. But at 1-8, they not only knocked off Texas, they almost beat TCU and West Virginia, and they've got an exciting quarterback in Jalen Daniels. That really has me excited about the talent the Big 12 has and the competitiveness this year.
You know, you look at the Big 12, and you and I, a little bit before we started, we were discussing a couple of teams, but Oklahoma, USC has all the new. Oklahoma has a lot of new. First-year head coach in Brent Venables. He's used to Oklahoma and the landscape. Do you see them as kind of they're okay because they're OU, or is there a few things you're not so sure about?
Well, I think if you just look at the fact they lost 2 games last year, they only have 5 starters back on offense, 5 on defense, and a brand new head coach. And I'll say this, talking to the head coaches, almost every second-year head coach I talk to always tells me the same refrain. Phil, we're in so much better shape this year than last year. I know the players inside and out. Players know the schemes. I've had my first full recruiting class. But with that said, I think Brent Venables steps into a pretty good situation. I thought Oklahoma underachieved last year, especially offensively. And while he brings in while he loses his quarterback, he brings in Dylan Gabriel. And back in 2019, Gabriel led UCF to one of the most explosive offenses in the country. His offensive coordinator, Jeff Lebby. His offensive coordinator here is Jeff Lebby. So Dylan Gabriel steps into a system he knows well. The offensive line is solid. Bill Bedenbaugh is still there. I rate him the number 8 offensive line in football. The skilled players are solid. And defensively, that's Brett Venables' strength. He knows defense. I think they'll be even improved defensively. And then with Oklahoma, you have to like the schedule. Remember, their 2 losses last year. They were a rather inexperienced team, and they lost at Baylor, which had almost everybody back, and they lost at Oklahoma State, which had the entire defense back last year, plus their veteran quarterback. Well, now this year, Oklahoma's on par with those 2 teams experience-wise, but Oklahoma gets them both at home, and that's why Oklahoma is my favorite to win the Big 12 this year. I think they have the best schedule of the bunch.
So you mentioned Baylor's offensive line, Phil, is number 4 in the country based on the statistics. Defense, I think, or offensive line was 7, defense 4. Who is the top returning defensive line or offensive line in your opinion?
Well, I'm on the Joe Moore Award Committee, and last year the Joe Moore Award winner was Michigan. And when I looked at the offensive lines this year, I wanted to pick somebody besides Michigan as the number one offensive line in the preseason coming in, but they got 3 of their 5 starters coming back, and they had a Virginia transfer at center, one of the best centers in the country in Oluwatimi, and he coming into that unit with 3 returning starters. I've got Michigan as the number one offensive line coming in. My top 2 defensive lines coming in. First of all, it starts with Clemson. You remember a couple years ago, Clemson had all those number 1 draft picks on the defensive line. Well, I think they've got that again this year. They've got all these PS number 1, PS number 2s. And for those of you not familiar with the magazine, that means the number 1 rated defensive lineman coming out of high school, the number 2 rated defensive line coming out of high school. Xavier Thomas, Brian Breezy, Miles Murphy, they're very deep. They go 3 deep at the position. I think this line is just like that Clemson national championship line of a few years ago. Best defensive line in the country. And then the one right behind them, and it'll surprise you because you would naturally expect the top defensive lines in the country to come from the SEC, but here the top 2 can actually come from the ACC. The other one is Pitt. And the thing about Pat Narduzzi is each and every year, Pat Narduzzi loses 2-3 defensive linemen to the NFL, and you're like, okay, they're going to take a step back. They don't. Last year they had 54 sacks as an example. Well, this year, he's got his entire defensive line basically back from last year. Baldonado, Cansey, Alexander. And if that's the case, they've got my number 2 defensive line in the country. So I think 2 surprising things, the ACC having the top 2 defensive lines.
I'm just curious. You mentioned it's about a 7-month process. It's almost like those who are in the personnel department of an NFL team. As soon as one draft is over, they're already starting to work on the next draft. Is that kind of a good analogy?
That sure is. We've already started partially to work on next year, but as soon as teams' regular seasons have ended, that's when we start to work on the magazine, the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and it's a tough process, a labor of love, I'll tell you that much.
A&M, they've been knocking on the door, and then last year they were better, beat Alabama, but their problem is they lose a game or 2 they shouldn't lose. Do you see them being able to not just beat Alabama, but compete for that West title or not?
I definitely see it next year because I think this year's team is very talented. Fisher's brought in 5 really good recruiting classes in his 5 years, the number 1 recruiting class this past year. And you look at last year, a couple of their losses. Remember, they lost their starting quarterback, Haynes King, early. So Zach Calzada was thrown into the fire against Arkansas and Mississippi State, 2 really good defenses. Then they looked like one of the best teams in football. It's had that tough loss against Mississippi and probably should have beaten LSU in the final. But they're low on my experience chart this year. They're only number 124. But when I look at the talent that Jimbo's got, you go to the 3rd team, and I go over the team with Coach Fisher every year. We get to the 3rd team, once again, VHTs out there, very highly touted players, and they have the depth and the talent to play with Alabama. Now, what I don't like is they're younger this year. Bama's number 54 on my experience chart. A&M's 124. A&M's got to play Alabama on the road, and Alabama's playing with revenge. And it's a week after A&M has played Miami of Florida, Arkansas, Mississippi State when they have to travel to face Bama. So it's a really good situation for Bama. Might be a tough year to unseat the Tide, but I think next year they really have that opportunity. And it wouldn't surprise me if this year A&M turns out to be a 10-11 win team.
Phil, as a college football fan and as deep into the game as you are, what are your thoughts about what we see now with all this change with Texas, Oklahoma last year, USC and UCLA 3 weeks ago, and the future of the game?
Yeah, and, being somewhat of a traditionalist, it always pains me a little bit when we see some things happen. But I remember when Nebraska went to the Big Ten, turned out to be a pretty good move for Nebraska. And ironically, I started writing the magazine in 1995, and that was right around the time that the Southwest Conference was disbanding and teams were getting absorbed in the Big 12 and the SEC, and you're wondering what the heck is going on. So I guess the one thing that's for me is change is going to happen, and college football still comes out looking pretty good at the end of it. So as tough as it is to wrap around all these changes that are happening, I don't see it affecting college football.
Do you have any kind of barometer of what coach is probably entering this season the most nervous?
Yeah, I would put a couple of them out there. You have to go with Scott Frost of Nebraska. You're looking at a guy that came in. Everybody was expecting everything out of Scott Frost, and he's had, 3-4 losing seasons in a row. He hasn't even had a winning season yet. 4 losing seasons into 4. So he absolutely 100% has to win. And then, you go back to all that stuff that happened off-field last year at Auburn with Brian Harsin. A lot of folks are surprised he's still there. But I'll say this. Auburn was picked last in the SEC West, and I greatly disagree with that. I think I've been doing this for 28 years, and all the talk was, oh, my God, it must be a toxic program. All these players are leaving Auburn. But what I've seen in my 28 years, David, is that the coach comes in, gets rid of the bad apples, and what he's left is a galvanized group, and I think that's what we'll have with Auburn this year. Auburn actually has top offensive line, defensive line, number 10 offensive line, number 9 defensive line, and I think they opened up 5-0 when they travel to face Georgia. So everybody's writing Auburn off right now. Plus, the narrative of Auburn would be a lot different had they hung on to that lead against Alabama last year. And Alabama needed a miracle to pull that thing out in 4 overtimes. So I'm bullish on Auburn this year, but Harsin clearly on the hot seat. He needs a winning season.
Phil Steele Publications, he's the owner. Phil Steele College Football Preview. The magazine is amazing. The digital part was amazing. Phil, again, wonderful job. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, David. Always a lot of fun talking football with a fellow FWAA member.
Absolutely. Thanks to Ted Ganji and that great group. Phil Steele, again, Phil Steele's College Football Preview Magazine, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
We could have talked forever, but we couldn't because he had other segments he was doing as well. And Phil Steele's College Football Preview Magazine, which is here on the set, appreciate his time. When we come back, you want to fix college football? I always want to hear what Mike Leach has to say. He has some ideas that when I read them, I was like, maybe they make sense. I know there's going to be some, no, that's not fair. And some are going to like it, just to kind of give you a different perspective on college football when it comes to NIL and also much more. Also, a note or two. Austin Novosad, the quarterback from Dripping Springs High School who's committed to Baylor, made a trip to Notre Dame. In the premium section, Grayson Grundhaver with a little bit of a summary on that as his recruitment is starting to get to the end line and perhaps even by the perhaps early next week, if not the weekend. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. PettyClinicalOT.com. Some of you in the chat room go, hey, when are you going to do Petty? Right now. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and perhaps used to be, because it's part of father time. It's part of getting older. It's part of, well, for some, 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. You hear a lot about ED. You hear a lot about your sex drive, and that gets almost all of the attention. But it could be sleep habits, could be body fat, could be your focus and energy, and it could be a lot of that combined. Well, PettyClinicalOT.com can help you find out what is the reason if that's true, because most of the time it centers on your testosterone level dropping. Go to PettyClinicalOT.com, top left-hand corner, phone number and email, contact them, tell them I sent you, and they will then set you up with an appointment. An appointment for you to get your blood drawn. An appointment for them to eventually get your results. And if your testosterone level is too low, Dr. Kent Petty can give you options to increase your testosterone level so you can become that high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. PettyClinicalOT.com.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
It's summertime, there's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do, and Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great, they'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon-wrapped filet, and of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, behind the bank.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
We will head to Oxnard, California. Our good friend John Machota, theathletic.com, is out there as the Cowboys have, along with other NFL teams over the last few days, opened up training camp. Theirs, of course, opened up with a State of the Union address with Jerry yesterday afternoon. A couple of recruiting, and I don't go over all of them, but a couple of recruiting notes today. Alabama received a commitment from Caleb Downs from Mill Creek, Georgia, class of 2023, five-star. Like one of the top players in the country, like one of the absolute top players in the country, including he picked Alabama over Georgia, Ohio State, and Notre Dame. That's a pretty damn good list. And I believe I read somewhere that it was the first time, hard to imagine, first time Alabama's taken the number one player out of the state of Georgia. Now, that's hard for me to imagine with their incredible success. But, I mean, again, the other guys from Georgia don't go to just Georgia. They're good and go elsewhere. Miami received a commitment from 2023 number one linebacker Malik Bryant. This was from Jones, Florida. Paul, where's that?
That I don't know.
Maybe Jones High School somewhere in Florida. A high-level player who picked the U.
Yeah, Jones High School is in Orlando.
Okay.
It's Orlando. You know what's it's kind of amazing about seeing the rebirth of Miami is that this was a school who they had a cap on, you know, it was they called it, Howard Schnellenberger called it the state of Miami, and it was from Tampa South. They wanted to own that recruiting, and they did for a long, long time. But they particularly owned the city of Miami really well because the city of Miami is a place that has a lot of kind of, I think, overblown civic pride. You know, if you're from Florida, you know that like people from Miami think the whole state kind of revolves around them. So they were losing out on kids from Miami in a city that, you know, people are kind of brought up to say this is the best place in the whole world and we love it and Miami's the best in the center of the world. So the school in Miami, in a city that loves itself more than almost anywhere, it's kind of like, you know, the Texan pride and all that stuff that everybody has, could not keep people there anymore. That's how uncool they became in their own city. And now you're starting to see that maybe State of Miami line getting redrawn by Mario Cristobal. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, in the early 80s is when Miami and Florida State, of course Florida, but they all started to keep the in-state talent because it was going all sorts of other different places. Now, the Mike Leach, and, I've interviewed him, I think, at one time. I think it's one time, and it might have been an event, when he was at a country club in Tyler. Here are some quotes from Mike Leach, Matt Hayes, Saturday Down South. Leach, what we have right now is unmitigated free agency and a bidding war. So how do you stop it? Leach says, split players into two specific groups, student athletes and professionals, and the players get to choose which group they want. The student-athlete track estimates is for about 95% or more of the current college players. They will sign and play under current scholarship format, but with a backloaded bonus structure. Leach, you come to school, you get your full scholarship and stipend. You can't be cut for playing ability, but can be cut for breaking rules. You can't be traded. You don't get drafted. The student-athlete track, again, is about 95% of the others. Was there another quote? There should have been another quote. Oh, damn. Okay. Here's another thing. Leach, if you finish all of your eligibility at the same school and graduate, you then at the end of that time, if you play 4 years or 5 years, whatever it is, your 5-year run, you get your degree, you get $150,000 at the end. That's retention bonus for signing a scholarship, playing 4 years of football, graduating from that same school. If you transfer, you're out.
I'm all on board with this so far.
Yeah.
I think he said more than that, though. Can I see that?
Yeah, no, but I thought I sent Garrett all the quotes there.
I want to point out, I don't like taking the degree out of the equation. Degrees help lives, help families, help generations. Then at the end of your career and graduation, and I don't know the perfect amount. So again, he's just throwing something out there. Let's say you get 150. So he's not saying it's got to be. He's just saying, let's say you get 150. He could have said any number there, and I don't. That's a retention. That's an earning your money thing right there too. And as far as you doing the classwork and all of that would come with that. And I agree with him. If you enter the transfer portal, you've got to put that clause in there, because if you don't, then there will be guys just portal hopping like crazy to grab the bag. But it'll be interesting to see, who's all about grabbing the bag and who looks up and all of a sudden is out of eligibility, if that's even going to be a thing in whatever new, by that point, like we'll have 10-year seniors in college football the way they're going right now.
Here's the deal. If you just on this side of it, if you have an NIL collective that signs people that says, like, listen, there's probably going to be some kind of hybrid of that. Like, you get kind of your stipend and we'll give you a little extra money and all that stuff. But if you stay for 4, if you finish all your eligibility and stay here and don't transfer, we'll give you $150,000 at the end. That's something that I think could incentivize a ton of athletes to do it. And it might clear some of the dead weight out of the transfer portal. Because
Yeah, no, it could. I just don't know when he says that $150,000 if he's saying, like, would guys get NIL money along the way, or does this mean you got to wait till the very end and get your degree you get paid?
I think that is you make like that decision. Either you either become a professional, that you take that track, or you become the track that's a student athlete. Now, it doesn't say whether or not you can change your mind 3 years into it or not.
Yeah, but
he's just throwing out $150,000.
No, I did. If you say you could 2 years into it, there's other people that are giving you an NIL deal. I mean, he's got your out clause there. You're just not going to get your $150,000, but you might be able to make that up in the next place you go.
Yeah, I just think that I think that's what my question is. Like, the $150 at the end, that's great if you take care of your business, but you're also asking them to wait 4 or 5 years to see a cent. That's what I'm saying is, like, what's the incentive along the way? Because
the part that you get a scholarship and also you get your stipend money.
Okay, well, the stipend. Well, there you go. That's what I'm talking. That's what I'm saying is, like, you're not going to not pay them at all for 4 years.
Said. That's the quote, though. Yeah, that was the quote. But it makes it school. You get your full scholarship and stipend.
That's what I'm saying is, like, okay, 150 chunk at the end, got that. But, like, what's along the way? So you're saying a stipend, and, like, okay, but I don't know. I just think that there's going to be a lot of impatience and that weeds guys out. So, yeah, that would never pass. There's just too many wild cards with that. But, I mean, I think that his head's in the right place as far as, like, incentivizing education and getting your degree. And I agree with him wholeheartedly based on my comments last week that, getting a degree is not for everybody. But there are sure a lot of people that would love to have had the opportunity that those who may be taking it for granted do have. And I do think that, 90+% of the athletes on any given team, other than maybe Alabama football, and even then it's the majority, aren't going pro. So, don't tell me the degree is not important and then, just thrust these people out there after they're done with their athletic careers totally unprepared. And I know that happens far too often. And that's why I said this isn't just on the athletes. You got to look at the universities themselves and how they've handled kind of the trade of all of this, of just using up players and then sending them along their way unprepared. I mean, all that's got to change. I think it's a system-wide thing that's really got to change. But yeah, I mean, that's an idea. I think, there's nothing wrong with listening to various ideas. He's not trying to pull money from people's pockets necessarily based on what you said. He's all for, getting degrees and paying guys at the end, but just trying to, I think, like everybody else, have some stability. Like, hey, if this is what we have to do to have guys stick around for 3 years rather than having to re-recruit them every offseason, I think coaches are looking for everything they can to have some sort of stability, and maybe that's, ultimately the basis for something that does become something that does turn into kind of what he's referring to.
One of the things that I do see, and I think it's probably from somebody that's just looking to start something, and I hope that I'm not talking to you, but if I am, I hope you hear me out, is that when we say that the transfer portal and or the NIL needs to have some sort of rules or some sort of and I think the word guardrails has been used before. I've even heard Saban use guardrails. It doesn't mean you're against it. It just means, my God, can you at least have some structure with it? Yeah. It's no different than anything else when you're earning money. Unless you're selling something on the street and you're not claiming taxes, there is a structure for what income you earn and how much you're going to end up paying in taxes.
Yeah, and we have to do this on a regular basis, and I just sit here and I just sigh when I hear that because it's like a weekly thing at this point. But then I also realize, like, hey, there's new people coming along the way. So maybe you're one of those. If not, then you're just trolling because we've made it clear 150,000 times on this show that we're not anti-NIL, but we are pro, like, some sort of a rule. Like, that's not a cap on the money that they can make or anything like that, but, like, yeah, let's have transfer window dates. What's wrong with that? Like, the people, you don't like NIL, you want transfer, like, what is transfer window dates and wanting those in place so that, like, I don't know, you know who's on your team at any given moment? Why is that, like, anti-NIL? So I hope that's where you're coming from. You're just a new viewer or something, because we get a lot of those lazy takes on, if you say anything about NIL that's not just let them do whatever they want, then you're somehow, you don't want players to get money. And
well,
it's like, what? Like, what are you talking about?
We've even had some in the chat room, which is kind of insulting, say that you are being racist. I'm just sharing it, and we've had that dialogue before. No, what we're saying is, let them have all the money they want. My God, we'd take it too. But the money we get, we know at the end of the year or sometime before April 15th or whenever it is that we're going to have to pay taxes. And we know that you have to, everything is a structure. College football's under a structure with a lot of things. And if you're just going to let people walk out of a team. So in other words, like you've said this before, October 15th, you're about to play some team, and the guy that's on your team is going to play for the other team that week. Well, who's saying that won't happen? I'm just saying I know it won't, but you got to have the guardrails or structure or at least some guidelines.
Yeah, that's all we're saying. I think that racism take is incredibly lazy if they're using it on what we're talking about, because I think the NIL guys we've talked about are probably not what they're directing that towards. I don't know. We talked a lot of Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, but don't let that, ruin your narrative. That incredibly lazy narrative.
Not on today's chat room.
No, not on today's chat room. I was talking in general. Yeah, whatever moron that was trying to go that direction is just so incredibly lazy. But, I think every coach out there, it's been made clear, and we didn't even dive into it with Jeff Traylor, but, Mike Leach is talking about it here recently. Everybody's at Media Days had to probably address it at some point or another. We saw Matt Campbell just roll his eyes to death when he had to start talking about the same stuff he's been talking about with NIL and all of that. So, it's a drain. Like, it's a drain just to keep wrapping our heads around it, much less the guys who actually have to deal with it on a regular basis or the gals that have to deal with it on a regular basis and just, be in the thick of it every day. In not only their own team, but also in recruiting. I mean, it's exhausting, I'd imagine. So I think that's as much as why you'd want some guardrails in place, like windows, which have been recommended as anything else. But, it is what it is. Like, this is why with NIL, it's cool and everything, but the whole conversation about it, like making it an industry and all of that. I mean, hey, we had somebody in here earlier who's talking about NIL and better and Baylor athletes. I think that's incredible, and there's so much good that's coming from it. But as far as like a day-to-day topic of conversation, I could do without it. I really could.
Here are some text messages from Steve. Most everyone agrees the networks are driving realignment. They will give their conferences a list, priority top to the bottom. The networks will tell the conferences when the law of diminishing marginal returns will kick in, 16, 18, or 20 or more. The networks can only secure so many dollars from the advertisers. Steve, thanks for that as well. Just my 2 cents. The Super 2, even though I mentioned 3 conferences, and he was talking about 3 conferences, 20 teams each, 4 divisions, 5 teams per division. There's a lot of you that have sent us ideas about how college football can still have that 60-plus or so Power 5 schools and even allow the G5 schools to have a chance to be a part of the national championship. I got this from the 213. We're talking about L.A. and all that, and, of course, with USC and UCLA. I was at a Dodgers game. This is a couple of nights ago. 71 degrees at first pitch. Sun going down on the San Gabriel Mountains with an ocean breeze. It was majestic. That happens every day in the fall here. It doesn't matter if it's L.A. Coliseum, SoFi, or the Rose Bowl. They will be kicking off a lot of games at 7 Pacific time now that the Big Ten is coming here. The Big Ten fan that travels will love this. They can catch up on their sleep when they get back home. Ask the LSU fan base how it went last year when they played the Rose Bowl at night against UCLA. They did not want to go home. Nothing like it in sports. Warren hit gold for the Big Ten fan base by getting those 2 schools into their scheduling for night games on the Pacific Coast. I do think Baylor played in the Holiday Bowl one year. How did that work out? It was glorious, by the way. Although we really never went to bed that night, did we? We did the post-game show from the hotel.
The post-game show from the hotel.
We flew back on the charter.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, that made it a little bit easier.
It did. It was weird that I'll tell you, but we flew out with the Baylor charter, and they had all this food ordered for the football players, and then they just served it to all the regular folks. Like we needed to be like,
I've never eaten better on an airplane.
Here's 7 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Yeah. Like, what's going on here? That was the Holiday Bowl was a fun experience. Yeah, it was good. Good game.
All right, Paul Bloss, by the way, who was over in Ireland. Remember, he was the one that gave us coverage of the Open Championship. He's back. Let me tell you, U.S. visitors that are sports inclined, this realignment story was big also in the U.K. and Ireland. Many Irish and U.K. sports fans were really up on it as well, and we discussed it and said it was like the Premier Soccer League that failed, and they wonder if in the long run this will be bad for college football as well. It is 5:15 at 5:30. John Machota on the Cowboys. Much more to come. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Keep it here. Waco Custom Marketplace, the weekly specials for this week all the way through Saturday when they close their doors. St. Louis-style pork ribs for $3.25 a pound. Tri-tip, $4.90 a pound. Baby back spare ribs, pork spare ribs from $4.50 to $2.75 a pound. Pork medallions is great, $4.50 a pound. Breakfast sausage patties for $2.75 a pound. And also Gulf shrimp, $15.99 a pound. Tiger shrimp, $13.99 a pound, and Gulf shrimp as well, the 16 to 20 piece inside of the package, $12.99 a pound, and frozen 1 pound of ground chicken at $1.99 a pound. These are just some of the specials. They have a full-fledged butcher shop and bakery, the bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day, and the butcher shop can custom make or custom cut what you want, whether it's beef, pork, poultry, or seafood. Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
The secret to living your best life is pizza, obviously. Golden crust made from scratch, 3 fresh signature cheeses, and the toppings, crispy old world pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, bacon. That's called a dream team. Find everything you need to live your best life and more at Marco's Pizza. Owner Bob Mock has been delivering pizza since 2001 and is the proud owner of 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to be open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. This is a great time for your business.
Exactly. And one other thing we do that a lot of people don't know is we buy jewelry, heirloom pieces, gold, silver bars, gold bullion, watches, anything you may have that you want to. If you don't want to use it and remake something like I did in a state yesterday and I looked at 35 pieces, well, they're probably going to sell me back 30 because it's something they're not going to wear, nothing to use. So if you're looking to get a few bucks or to sell something or something you just don't wear anymore, I make my wife go through her jewelry box about every 6 to 8 months, and the things that she doesn't wear on a daily basis, this sounds horrible, but I take away from her and then I'll put in my estate counter, but then that gives me the chance to rebuy her something new moving forward. Instead of looking down 20 years down the road and you have 300 pieces of jewelry, it's something to refresh and make her buy something new along the way.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Motion and a fake, and he's hit as he throws. It's intercepted. Jaron McVay had it fall right in his hands. It was Braden Utley who delivered the hit on Sanders, who's thrown his 3rd pick of the day.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Welcome back. We have a sliver here of a couple of notes, and then we will have John Machota from what is gorgeous right now, Oxnard, California, and the Cowboys at training camp as well. The chat room today has been on many, many things. Of course, a lot of it is realignment. A lot of it is, in fact, conferences have 16 or 18 or 20 teams, the various type of pods. We appreciate all of you for being a part of that.
Yeah, no, it's crazy to see all the different ideas and just kind of where everybody's coming from. But, when we start talking about 20-plus teams, that's not a conference. That's
a
not
league.
That's not a conference. That's a daggum league. So, yeah, that's why my whole rant earlier about, like, are we just going back to where we were but just naming things differently and putting it under 4 umbrellas rather than 6? And it feels like maybe that is the direction we're going if, there's going to be more poaching going on. But, that whole talk today, that Dennis Dodd article, we were talking about those very schools and the whole scuttlebutt about that 2-3 weeks ago. So it makes you wonder, like, who on the Pac-12 side potentially is putting that out there, who on the Big Ten side could be putting that out there, who, anywhere else could be putting that out there to try and ramp up some pressure as well, And you got to wonder anytime anything involving the Big Ten comes out too is, okay, is this somebody trying to, as best they can, attempt to strong-arm Notre Dame and hasten some type of a decision of some sort? But again,
they aren't listening.
Notre Dame's on their own, and until they're not, they are, and they are on really no timetable that anybody can speak to.
They're on their own timetable.
Yeah. So this whole, like, waiting on them is, okay, how long are you waiting for that? And until that gets cleared up, it feels like you can't really clear up too many of the other parts of it because there's a domino effect. If you can't add Notre Dame, if you're the Big Ten and that's your ultimate goal, well, then how many do you want to add after that? Like, if you add Notre Dame, then you're probably going to add at least 1 more, if not 3 more, which would make sense with those Pac-12 schools. But then, how do you set yourself up for 10 years from now with the ACC? And whether that falls apart early or whether that lasts as long as it doesn't, because all these moves being made right now, guys, these weren't, like, drawn on a whiteboard like a year ago. These have been in the making for quite a while, even if the commissioners are relatively new. Like, the ideas have been marinating for a while,
Well, look, if you're the Big Ten, the SEC, I think, seems to be content being in the region that they are, and kind of just widening out. They don't, because they are so powerful, they don't feel the need to go coast to coast. They just want to add brands that make sense for them, which is what Oklahoma and Texas mean. So that's why if they expanded, that's why, the Clemson and Florida State things would make sense for them getting in that 20 because it's still in that same region. It's still very much who they are about big brands in that part of the this part of the country, south of the Mason-Dixon line. But I do wonder, though, with the Big Ten, and they're like, okay, we're going to add these 4 teams so that USC and UCLA have kind of a travel partners, and we have kind of east and west parts of the conference. But if they're really trying to go corner to corner of the country, the one place they don't have is anywhere in the South.
Yes.
And anywhere in the Southeast. Yeah. So, to me, the Big Ten expansion would make sense going into the South. Now, if they want to continue to have their, strict rules on AAU members, well, that makes a lot of the people out.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know how I'm curious of just how concrete of a rule that is.
Well, when
there's some exceptions, I feel like, that.
Well, Nebraska was, and then they lost it because their medical school was in Omaha, not connected to Lincoln, and probably because they weren't much of an AAU school anyway.
No, I know there's definitely a connection there, and I know that Kevin Warren just spoke about academics yesterday, but if there's somebody who's like super borderline but would be valuable to the conference that is an AAU, I think they'd still let them in. That's what I'm curious about. Like, do you have to have that?
So here are their schools that are AAU members in the ACC: Duke, Virginia, Georgia Tech.
There's one,
and I believe North Carolina.
There's I mean, they would definitely want North Carolina. Anybody probably would.
Let me see. North Carolina is not.
Okay,
I don't think they are. Yeah.
So if North Carolina want to join the Big Ten, you think they're going to tell them no?
Probably not. No, yes, they are. Yes, they are. I'm sorry. Okay. My correction. Their logo is not as recognizable, but yeah.
But that's my question is, if let's say North Carolina wasn't, or Clemson wasn't, or Florida State wasn't, are they going to tell them no? That's what I mean. Is like, is there an exception that can be made, or is it like you have to be an AAU school? I think there's an exception that can probably be made for the Big Ten if they are thinking business. I mean, but yeah, I mean, at some point you think they would have to look south and east. Like, here's the deal: is like, what does the SEC ultimately do? How do they counteract anything? I mean, neither one has to really do much more than they've done already. Like, they could just stop where they are, and they would be super exclusive, which what I was speaking to earlier is, like, the more teams you add, the less exclusive it feels and becomes. And then it's basically just college football A and B rather than super elite League One and super elite League Two. They're kind of elite right now. They'd still have all the elite schools, but the more you add, the more, it does kind of water the thing down. And then you're 24 teams and you're not a conference, you're a league at that point. So, like this, Kevin Warren, he left that door open, and that what leads to speculation. The Pac-12 fires keep burning. As far as the war with the Big 12 online, there's a lot of mud being slung back and forth there, but I still feel like until Notre Dame makes a decision or the Big Ten or somebody outright says, hey, this is the next move, which none of them appear to be in a hurry to do, that you're kind of just waiting if you're everybody else.
I do think it's funny, like this Big 12, Pac-12 Twitter war that's going on. It's kind of funny to me in that, look, the people in Big 12 country are just like the reasonable ones like us are just saying that right now I'd rather be the Big 12 and know what I am and what I'm going to be, as opposed to the Pac-12 that's in a desperation spiral right now.
They are where the Big 12 was in late July of last year.
But they can never go back to being who they really were because they've lost Los Angeles. So they have to reinvent that in some way if they want to stay at conference. But it's also like, look, the Pac-12, looked down on the piddly little Big 12 last year. A lot of schools
do.
And looked down when it happened, and then it turned around and happened to them. So it is that turnabout is fair play kind of an attitude where really no one wants the conferences. Most fans don't want the conferences to break up. Want everything to stay relatively the same. But that's not an option now. So you have these, who's better, but ultimately,
when did that who's better start? I never remembered that growing up. The Big 8 was great, or the Big 10 was great, or the SEC was great. It started when the media got to the point where covering college football was as big as anything but the NFL, and there was this pride. And the SEC has their pride. But now it's almost to the point where it's gotten to the point
propaganda.
Of academics or AAU. It's like it's pick your narrative of what you want.
Oh, it's like if you're a fan of a certain school, it's like you never lose because every argument eventually devolves into like, hey, we played each other head up and you lost, but what's your net worth for your university? It's like
how much revenue are you producing?
What is like the main the main sum of a university, like the endowment? What's your endowment? And like now we're comparing endowment sizes. It's like comparing, I mean, like come on. I mean that's what it devolves into. And so that's why the big schools never in theory lose. It's like, hey, we've beaten you 6 straight times. Well, we got more conference championships. Well, hey, we got the same amount of conference championships. Yeah, we got more national championships. Oh, we got the same amount of national. Oh, we got a bigger endowment.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, we got the same endowment. We got more alums that are living over 35 in the western part of the country. And it just goes on and on and on.
That just could be trolls.
And that's just tribalism too. Yeah. Like there's a lot of that's running rampant these days more than ever. But yeah, and that's also part of the fun is just throwing out the trash talk there. But, ultimately it does come back to what's going on the field. And that's where I typically keep my brain. And that's why I'm so looking forward to hearing about, a month from now when we're going to be, knee-deep into actually seeing, okay, whose transfer portal additions mattered and whose didn't. And hopefully by then we'll also have some clarity on realignment. But I thought it was very clear in listening to Mac Rhodes yesterday, and Kevin Warren as well, and Jim Swarbrick, and everybody that's talked at this point is like there's a couple of people who have their hands on the levers that can create this next chapter and get it moving along, but they're not doing that right now, and everything just sort of seems like it's at like a Mexican standoff. Is that the term for it? Where everybody's pointing guns at everybody? That's what it feels. It feels like a Mexican standoff, if that's the right term, yeah.
Opie, D-Don, I don't know exactly if I said that right, Opie. Sankey did say they were proud of the regionality and touted that. We've also heard that regionality doesn't matter anymore in certain ways. Let's see. The AACs or the ACC's AAU schools are North Carolina, Duke, Virginia, Pitt, and Georgia Tech.
I forgot about Pitt. Yeah, I always forget that they're there. They won the thing last year, but still.
Who wants that Pittsburgh market? And when we start hearing that talk, eventually. But it's interesting because the Big Ten now goes east to west all the way. They don't have the South, however. But if you just draw kind of a line like crossways, that's pretty much the Big Ten and the SEC now, at least in the future. The South and the Southeast and the Southwest, to an extent, are covered by
the Big Ten
SEC.
spans what, 3 time zones? Yeah, right?
Wouldn't they span all of them? Or do they go coast to coast?
No, they're not in the West. They're not in Pacific time, are they?
The Big Ten?
The Big 12. I'm sorry, the Big 12. The Big 12. Yeah.
The Big 12 is in the Eastern, Central, and Mountain.
Yeah, okay.
I'm talking about the SEC and the Big Ten, though.
Yeah, okay.
I'm talking about if you draw a line like across the country, like whatever that term is, from like New York down to like San Diego. Okay, slice that bad boy in half. On this side, the Southeast and the South, you got the SEC, basically.
Right.
And on the upper half, you got the East Coast and the top part of the Midwest, the North, and all the way to the Northwest.
And that's a Big Ten, yeah.
There's your Civil War right there.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. Like, where, does the SEC need to go any further? Do they need to go coast to coast in theory? Does the Big Ten need to go south? And so those are the questions that I have more so than anything is like, what does the end game look like? Does the Big Ten want to be coast to coast like they are now, or do they want to be coast to coast and northern border to southern border and do they want to be America basically? Same thing with the SEC. Like, how much do you want this thing to grow, and how much territory do you want to claim? Because right now both conferences have pretty large, they each got half the country.
No, you're right. It's a good point the way you put it that way as well. And I will say this to close it out. I never in my life, because I surely was never invited to go to a school that was AAU or had an endowment of a lot, because I went to Stephen F. Austin and I love it because it allowed me to get into what I do for the last 40 plus years. When did I ever hear until really recently and on social media when people start to bring up endowment and or AAU? Only because what you said, they're not AAU, and that's kind of a snobby way to look at it.
Whatever you can hold over the other person to feel superior.
When I vote for the Heisman Trophy, and I'm fortunate to be a part of that, or if I had a vote in the college football poll, I wouldn't give a damn other than who they are as a football program and who they've beaten and their schedule.
But that's why there's the same schools are the kind of the blue bloods, because eventually always just ends with the we got more All-Americans. Now we're tied. Now we got more conference championships. Now we're tied. Well, we got more national championships. Now we're tied. Well, then now's your endowment. We got more people in Hollywood than you, or whatever somebody can try to hold over your head to distract you from the fact that the beginning of the conversation was about who won the game that Saturday.
Yeah.
It's like, who won the game that Saturday? That's what matters to me. I can't wait to see who wins these upcoming Saturdays.
If you missed Phil Steele, that's going to be up, of course, thanks to Levi and Emory. Oh, Lord.
Did you just give them ship them?
Levi.
You gave them like a celebrity couple name?
Levi and Lemery.
Like Benifer?
By the way, there's a new human being back in the studio. Jack McKenzie was on a vacation almost as long as Paul's. Great to have you back. And also, of course, Garrett
too?
Ross. Yeah, did you?
No. Okay.
Did you go to Green Bay? Did you go up to Wisconsin? You did go to Wisconsin. All right.
By the way, Pac-12 Media Day is coming up. Those are going to be
Media
fun.
Day. They do it on one day.
Yeah, Media Day. Thank you.
And the possibility, of course, it's a report, but the possibility that the ADs of USC and UCLA are not going to be allowed at the podium.
Well, I can't, like I said with Kevin Warren, he said a lot without saying a whole lot. I mean, he let it be known. He touched on every hot button topic imaginable, but try to figure out like what the actual plan is for the Big Ten. Everything's on the table. Like, he didn't reveal anything about, we might expand, but we're not going to tell you who, where, when, what, why, other than it's got to be the right circumstances. That's just how he covered it. And so I'm very curious. And then we know what Brett Yormark said at Big 12 Media Days. They're open for business. I mean, that's really all their option is. SEC's content but watching what's going on, and we'll see what the Pac-12's message is, but it's very fitting that they would be last in line to kind of wrap it all up.
It is weird. It is weird the way that they're the ones on Friday, and we appreciate Jeff Traylor with Conference USA UTSA being a part of the show today. This is Sick 'Em 365 Radio, 365 Sports. We'll go to Oxnard, California, and hopefully get that weather through the YouTube, through the phone. John Machota's next.
Make this a summer sales event is happening now at Allen Samuels on the new 2022 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Star. With special values up to $7,000 or get $1,500 bonus cash and 2.9% for 72 months. Ram trucks are designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. This legendary award-winning truck gives you that first-class feel. Allen Samuels in Waco, the place to shop for Ram trucks. First responders get $500 extra cash.
Come by. Let's be friends.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T is board-certified physician consultations, will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with John Machota of The Athletic, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
I wish I had the audio of yesterday's Jerry Jones, an hour and 6 or 8 or 10 minutes, whatever it was. And the part about Mike McCarthy, when he was talking about he's here for a reason, but believe me, we have options. It's like he contradicted himself. Of course, you can dig apart of anything Jerry says. John Machota joins us, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. John, how many times, just in the opening press conferences each year to start training camps, are you trying to figure out what in the hell he's saying?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's nonstop. It's not even the press conferences. I feel like every time he talks every week during the season on the radio, it's always trying to decipher things. And you're doing that with someone who will at times talk out of the both sides of their mouth. And then there's the other factor that you always have to keep in here is that this is also someone who has said many times, just because I said it doesn't mean it's so. So he can also say things that he doesn't even really mean. So I'll say this, when you mention that stuff, talking about, I have options and things like that. Yeah, so does every NFL team. They all have options. They can all get other head coaches, believe me. There's only 32 head coaching jobs in the NFL, and not one of them, no matter how bad the organization is going to have trouble finding a head coach to fill that spot. There is no shortage of people that want to coach in the NFL. So Obviously, everybody has options. And so Jerry makes it a point at the beginning of that press conference to talk about all that stuff, to try and solidify, his backing of Mike McCarthy. But it doesn't change anything that we already thought going into training camp. If they don't have postseason success, they're going to go in another direction. And nothing that Jerry said yesterday changes that. He can sit there and say everything he did on the podium, and then they don't have that postseason success. And then in January, he'll say, yeah, well, we didn't get to as far as I thought we should, so we're going to go in another direction. That's why I'm hiring so-and-so or whatever. So he did that because he's trying to get everyone to think that, yeah, I'm with Mike McCarthy. He's our guy because, let's be honest, it doesn't make any sense for him to go up there and say, hey, this is a big year for Mike. If we don't win, we're going to be looking for somebody else. I mean, why would you do that? You sabotage your entire team before the season even starts. So none of that's surprising, but when Jerry says things like that, those are things that other owners and GMs don't say on a podium with the coach sitting right next to him. So it makes for awkward moments. But, yeah, I don't know. Covering the Cowboys, you just kind of come to expect things like that.
I guess it could be worse. The owner could be hiding away in Israel or France, trying to avoid a congressional subpoena. But it's still weird when he can say things like this. One of the things this might have been Stephen Jones and not Jerry that said this, John, was that they feel better about their roster this year than they did last year. And I know there was some Amari Cooper kind of slander in there about, how they felt about he approached the year. But I'm not sure that that's a hill they can really die on, saying that this roster is better than last year's roster, given what they've let go.
True, and I agree with you. But so Jerry did say that, but he also, and he said this something pretty similar a few months back, and he says as of right now, and he says that because whether you're talking about last time he said, which I think was a little bit after the draft, and then he says it yesterday. He's talking, the big piece in there is that at those two times, nobody thought last year that Micah Parsons was going to have the season he did, and probably not even Trayvon Diggs the season that Trayvon had. So I think that that's what he means, is that, what the expectations were. You didn't expect Micah to be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year, much less be the runaway winner of Defensive Rookie of the Year. And I don't think anybody thought at that time that Trayvon Diggs, coming off a 3-interception season, was going to get 11. You might have thought he might have got 3 to 5, but you weren't expecting that. So I think what he's saying is that as they were sitting last year, they weren't expecting that stuff. Now that we know that those guys are capable of it, we're kind of like, all right, well, I don't know that they can do any better than they did last year. So even if they are just a little bit improved, you still have to make up for the losses of some of these other areas, and they haven't done that. So they're banking on a lot of guys stepping up that are unproven players, like a Tyler Smith, somebody who today we're out there for the first walkthrough practice, and they have Connor McGovern at left guard with the first team, and then Tyler Smith comes in, and I think it's kind of we're going to make it look like he's earning the position, but everybody knows week one, as long as Tyler Smith's healthy, he's going to be their starting left guard. But yeah, a player like that, they're expecting some of these younger players to take a major step, and it's possible they do, but it's also very possible that they don't take a major step and they play rookies.
John, what did you think of? I mean, today it's the Indoor Olympics, but some of the things that that Mike McCarthy talked about, James Washington and his ability. He's a player we haven't talked about a lot, but especially early in the season, he's going to be a key player. They really kind of need him to work out, don't they?
Yeah, I thought he looked a little bit rusty today. Dak tried to go after him on a deep ball at the left sideline. He was being defended by Nashawn Wright, and he wasn't able to make the catch. It was a good ball by Dak, but he just wasn't able to haul it in. So there's a work in progress there, because that's the thing. You go back, a few weeks ago, Dak and a couple other players posted a picture on Instagram of them working out at the University of Miami. It was Dak and Jalen Tolbert, CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz, Zeke was there, and then Sean McEwen. And James Washington wasn't there because he wasn't all the way back. I mean, we didn't see him in OTAs and minicamp. He was in a walking boot for that portion. So there's clearly some of a gap that needs to be closed, where Jalen Tolbert and James Washington have to get on the same page with Dak, because he needs them immediately to be good. And that might not happen. I mean, it takes time to build a rapport like that. It would be in a perfect world for the Cowboys, Michael Gallup would be completely healthy, and you would be looking at James Washington and Jalen Tolbert to fight for the number 3 spot. Now you're looking at, you don't know when Gallup, who is starting training camp on the physically unable to perform list, as we expected with his knee injury. So you're expecting Washington and Tolbert to hit the ground running. So I think Tolbert and Dak are a little bit closer on their rapport. And I think James Washington's a little bit more work in progress, but he's just going to get every opportunity to win that number 3 job. So all eyes are going to be on him. He's definitely one of the top, 4 or 5 players I have my eye on during this training camp.
You know, it's interesting because the Cowboys always seem to be with an occasional just, oh my God, they're out of it early because of an injury or two. But they always seem to be in the neighborhood. They always seem to be. And, Paul, you've talked about this. They're good enough to be a part of the conversation, but when they are terrible, they're still a part of the conversation. How frustrating do you think it really is for Jerry, Steven, whoever else, Cowboys fans, whoever, to always be just good enough, but they cannot get over the top. They can't get to the top. They've been 26 freaking years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're frustrated, but one thing I'll say is, why not then after 15 years or heck, even after 10, much less 20 to 26, why isn't there like an off season where they just go crazy and sign some guys, make a few trades and just really go all in. And if it doesn't work, you can at least point back to, oh, hey, remember that 2011 season when they went all in and did this, or that 2015 season or that 2020 season? Like, it just seems like, especially since I've covered a team in 2011, like there really has never been that year where you're just like, oh yeah, they're absolutely all in. I mean, their 2 best seasons in the last decade are 2014 and 2016. And in both of those seasons at this time of year, there was pretty low expectations. So they can be frustrated about it, but at the same time, this is just kind of how they've done business. They don't really, Jerry talked about yesterday about how he's a big time risk taker and he'll take risks with the best of them. I just look at the Cowboys organization, and we don't even have to dig that far back. We can just go back to last year's offseason with the Rams. When if the Cowboys had an offseason where you're just like, man, they're pushing all their cards in and they're just going for it right now? Like, they just haven't had one of those. So because of that, it seems like they're trying to build it through the draft and then hoping to catch lightning in a bottle in the playoffs. And that obviously hasn't worked. So until it does, you can be critical of the way they go about their business. Like, there's a lot of things they do that I think are great and I think are very smart for an NFL organization. And then there's other times where I'm like, you're the Dallas Cowboys. Take some chances here. It's been 26 years.
Yeah, John, they don't have the decency to be really, really bad or really, really good.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, for sure. Like, if to be really, really bad, it would have to be like 2015 or even a couple years ago. And in both those situations, that was because their franchise quarterback went down and was out for most, if not, for most of the season. So those were horrid years, and that would, if that was to happen again this year, I think that would be the same result. If Dak was to go down, I think it would be a really bad season, 4 or 5 wins. But as long as Dak Prescott's healthy and the defense that they bring back, all the key pieces from last year, including Dan Quinn running the show on that side of the ball, I think that their basement is very high. But I don't look at their ceiling as being one that, let's be honest right now. They talk about Super Bowl and things like that. I don't think anybody's sitting here today outside the organization going, I think this has a really good chance of being a Super Bowl team. Like, they could possibly get lucky in the postseason and get hot at the right time. But as the roster sits today, I don't think anybody's expecting them to still be playing football late in January.
Yeah, you're right. John, thank you very much. Wait a minute. Garrett, do you have what I sent you? Here is from the weather maps, the weather app. Here is Waco, Texas, with 102 degrees, with no end in sight. Here is where John is. What is that number?
That's a 66 right there.
66. I think that's Ray Nitsky.
And the high was 68.
Tomorrow, it's the low of 59, early or maybe even later. I don't know when, but John, we hate you.
Guys, it's chilly out here. I have a hooded sweatshirt on right now. Okay,
it's chilly out here with it. Well, no, it's not even the evening when that little marina layer or whatever you want to call it, marine layer comes in, and I love it. It's beautiful. Glad you're having fun. Enjoy it. I know you will, and thanks for your time.
Absolutely. There's no place I'd rather be right now.
Yep, and that's John Machota, theathletic.com.
I think that's one of the reasons Jerry brings all the writers out to Oxnard, so that when he says things that are contradictory, at least everybody's in a good mood when they're writing it.
Yeah, I don't buy every heat or every line thrown from reporters on the Pac-12 superiority over the Big 12, but the weather part of it, yeah, I'd give them that. I'd give them that for sure.
Yeah,
especially on a day like today.
I think that's part of the reason that California is as strange as it is, because if you grew up in California, like maybe 3 times in your life, the weather has changed your plans, as where everywhere else in the country, it happens all the time. So when you don't have to deal with, God saying you're not playing golf today, you can kind of get entitled.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's also other things to have to deal with, that we don't have to deal with. But yeah, I mean, there's not much beating the weather out there in a place like Oxnard, especially. I can't speak to the entire West Coast. Haven't been up and down, but Southern California and Oxnard, it's pretty tough to be. It's pretty perfect pretty much all the time.
They're at the what is it? It's a Residence Inn,
yeah.
And right next to it there are 2 golf courses, and they're both very nice. And you could see the mountains. It's just a gorgeous, and that's what I missed by being able to get off the air, because when we got off the air it was 4:00 Pacific time, and then we could still have time to go do pretty much anything. But I do miss the drive down Highway 1 towards Malibu to go to our favorite little seafood restaurant on the coast.
Neptune's Net.
Neptune's Net.
I actually found a better one a little further down. The last time I was there, it was
just
good.
A gorgeous view.
And I ate at Neptune's Net too, because tradition.
We have to,
but you have to, and you guys weren't there. But let's not say we have enough time to do what we want to do. We have enough time for Craig and I to sit there and stay at practice while Smokey and Eric go play golf.
We did. We damn sure did. Keith Poser just sent me this direct message, by the way. Coach Bennett mentioned North Texas Richard Mason, I believe his last name is. He mentioned how he could be their Chris McAllister, who's a former Baylor defensive lineman back early in the 2010s. It was really, really good, underrated. It shows Richard, who is Keith Poser's nephew, cashing in my chips. Hashtag GMG, Go Mean Green. So good luck to him. Appreciate Richard for being a part, Keith, for that update on a young man that Phil Bennett mentioned the last time I think he was on the show. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports, the top 5 next.
Cars priced right both day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Top 5 bold predictions. See what you guys think of these bold predictions I'm going to make.
Bold predictions?
Bold. These are bold.
Oh, okay.
Bold. B-O-L-D. Bold. Number 5. Kansas wins 2 Big 12 games.
I can see that. I'm not on, like, I know it's been a long stretch for them, unfortunately. I can see that.
I'm not going to agree with that. But
you don't think so? Look,
no.
They beat Texas last year and almost snuck up on Oklahoma. I think there could be a chance for them to.
Well, it all depends. Is the conference going to be top-heavy, midsection heavy, or bottom-heavy?
I think it's going to be midsection heavy. I don't really know how top some teams are. I mean, on the poll, somebody has to technically be on top, but for everybody saying, I think Baylor's going to win it, I think Texas is going to win it, I think Oklahoma. Like, how many of those teams are you also projecting to the playoff? Like if it's none of them, then it's pretty much middle heavy then. But if you think that whoever wins is going to be in the playoff, or there's others that could be in contention for the playoff, then it would be top heavy. But I don't think anybody really knows that right now. So yeah, I mean, I could see it. Don't get me wrong, I could see it. But I just still think that they've got a ways to go. And I think enough people respect Lance Leipold that I don't know that they're going to sneak up on teams. You know what I mean? I think that, especially do you think Texas is going to take Kansas for granted this time around? No. So, yeah, I think people are going to be well aware that he's building something, but, yeah, it's still very much in the building phase.
Yeah. But that's why it's bold. Number 4, the winner of the Notre Dame-BYU game on October 8th in Las Vegas will be in the CFP conversation. Both of them have very similar schedules around it. I mean, tough like normally, but I just think that this is going to be 2 pretty good teams on a roll when they see each other, veteran teams. I like what Marcus Freeman's doing. I love the hangover video today. I don't know if you guys everybody saw that. That was really cool to pump up the game and the uniforms he'll be wearing for the Shamrock Series game there in Las Vegas. But I do think that, I say in the conversation, that doesn't mean that they don't lose towards the end of the season and fall out. But I do think that after that game, and especially if it's BYU, they'll jump up and might be this year Cincinnati for a little while and somebody outside the norm getting in.
So I guess that means we know who you're taking at Baylor, BYU, and Provo.
Right now, I'm kind of leaning BYU.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to pick them because if they lose to Baylor, they're not going to be in the college football playoff conversation. So yeah. But yeah, if BYU beats Baylor and rolls into that game against Notre Dame, then yeah, of course, absolutely. If they're both, sitting there pretty much, be unbeaten.
I reserve the right to change my mind as this comes up, but I just, I look at Baylor's schedule right now, and I don't see anybody in the Big 12 going undefeated, and I just see this is a tougher schedule than it was last year. A lot. All that, like BYU, Oklahoma, Texas, all those games that they won were all here in Waco. Now those games are all on the road. Not to mention a couple others, but those 3.
How many games were, like, you hear about Nebraska losing all those one score games. How many of their games were able to just kind of on the right side of it? That's just good.
None of that on Baylor. They have to go to Morgantown, a team that I think will be better this year, but a place that it doesn't matter how good West Virginia is. It's been a house of horrors for Baylor to play in since West Virginia joined the league. Number 3, North Carolina goes 6-6.
Yikes.
And Matt Brown's on the hot seat. And I say this because I don't like last year was a really disappointing season for them with the best quarterback they've had in a long time coming off a good season. This is their schedule in 2022. They'll start out 3-0, Florida A&M, App State, Georgia State, 3-0. But then they've got Notre Dame, a game I think that they'll lose handily. Virginia Tech is very much a toss-up because that team under Brent Pry could be better this year. But that could be a win. Miami's going to be better, and they play them October 8th when they should probably be at full steam, you would think. So that's in the middle of the season. Duke, probably a win. Pitt could be a loss. Virginia could be a loss. Wake Forest, with their unbelievable offense, is going to put 50 points on the board half the weeks of the year. That's on the road. Georgia Tech probably win, but NC State at the end of the year, NC State a dark horse. I think that's 6-6.
Better be no probably about Georgia Tech. They better beat Georgia Tech, but no, I mean they went 6-7 last year, so sure.
With Howell the quarterback,
they will not be any better
this
year.
Yeah, that would suck for Mac Brown. If that's the case, that would certainly raise the temp a bit on his seat. But yeah, that would be rough.
By the way, you went back to Brigham Young for a second. Baylor, Oregon, Notre Dame, Arkansas, Boise State, Utah on their schedule. Yeah. I love that's a national schedule. I love it.
They're unbeaten rolling through that into Notre Dame. Then, geez Louise.
Yeah. I think Utah's after Notre Dame, so that's kind of a swing.
It is the next to the last game.
Yeah. USC will not win the Pac-12. I actually think that's going to be Utah, but that game is also the swing game in that league. USC's schedule kind of looks pretty favorable to them this year. And I would say they're a 9-3, 10-2 team at worst if the talent works out and the coaching upswing happens with Lincoln Riley as it should. But I think Utah, a more complete team, a better team, a more cohesive team this year because they did it together last year.
I think whether anyone agrees or AAU or God knows what, I think their mentality is very close to a lot of teams now in the Big 12 with the way that Whittingham coaches
easy schedule.
and who they are, just their personality.
USC's?
Yes. Yeah. Geez, what an easy schedule. I mean, should Rice, Stanford, Fresno State, at Oregon State, Arizona State at home, Washington State at home, and then finally at Utah. But, they should roll into that Utah road game.
Undefeated.
They should.
On a roll. Yeah.
Yes, they absolutely should.
Is Fresno State a gimme?
Now that they're coach and all that's gone.
Yeah,
so
it's USC. It's USC.
Well,
no, I know. But if this is Lincoln Riley, big bad USC with Caleb Williams as transfer court, you damn well better beat Fresno State.
Oh no, there's no question. I know that.
I know what you're saying, but
remember when Pat Hill was there? They used to sneak up on some people and give them holy hell. Yeah.
So let's say you go into October 15th game against Utah, which is at Utah. I mean, that'll be tough. But then after that, at Arizona, okay. Cal at home, okay. Colorado at home, okay. At UCLA, all right. And then, and USC, UCLA, I mean, that could be funky just because, it's a rivalry or whatever. But then, Notre Dame at the end. So Notre Dame and Utah, I mean, those are obviously two tough games. But beyond that, you'd think they got to be favored in every single one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and part of my Notre Dame hype right now might be that I'm very bullish on Marcus Freeman. I think he's going to be
only
great.
Because of the uniform reveal.
No,
he's done a hell of a job
before. I really like what he does. All right, number 1, Kansas State will keep at least 2 teams out of the Big 12 championship game. They will ruin 2-team seasons, and if not, be third or second themselves if everything goes completely according to plan. I like what they have going there. I just look at especially where things fall in their schedule. There could be some teams that need to beat Kansas State and don't to stay in the conversation. I think they could be season ruiners. Not necessarily in the championship game.
Okay, where do they play Oklahoma State?
They play Oklahoma State at home.
Where do they play Baylor?
They play Baylor on the road.
Okay, where do they play Oklahoma?
They play Oklahoma on the road.
And then let's say at Texas
they're home for Texas at TCU.
All right, West Virginia.
West Virginia is there.
Okay. All right. We like Chris Kleiman. We're a fan of what they're doing at K-State.
I'm not putting them in the Big 12 championship game.
You're just
saying that they are the potential to be the season ruiners.
Yeah.
As long as we beat Kansas State, everything's okay, and you lose to Kansas State.
Well, let's put it this way: they're good, and if you beat them, that means you're going to be in that conversation.
Yeah.
If you don't, then that's going to probably hurt you. Hey, I gave a note about Alabama about the commit. Imagine this. It's the first time, again, they've had a top-ranked player out of Georgia with that commitment with Downs since the internet rankings began. Will Anderson is from Georgia, was the 4th-ranked player in his state, which is, again, how deep and talented they are in Georgia. Thanks to Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie, Levi Caraway. Thanks to Garrett Ross, to Craig and Paul. I'm David Smoak. Thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you for watching and listening. Good night, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.